Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Seven Dock, the largest diplomacy game of all time, as of when it was played. 147 players, now down to just 65. So we've had a lot of deaths. I am here in... Well, I am Feldkirch. I've been exiled from Feldkirch. I am here on 2 supply centres in Timisoara and Kragujevac. And my co-host here, Ezio. Hi, Ezio.
Hello.
Is in Constantinople, doing significantly better than I am, with 6 supply centres. And somehow, despite spending most of the game with one another, well, I would say with one another flaming each other, it was really just me flaming Ezio. He didn't have time, have time or want to spend the effort flaming me. But we are now in the same alliance. We're both in GTFO.
Absolutely. Despite my, I was going to say best efforts, but that would imply I tried a lot harder than I did. Despite my, medium efforts to keep you out.
Yeah. So the players in GTFO closer to me were more in favour of me being in the alliance than Ezio was.
And that's the beauty of big alliances, right? The way that we set it up was I don't get to tell everyone how everything works. He was closer to some of my neighbors, and my neighbors wanted him in the alliance, so they get him in the alliance.
Yep.
Fine by me.
And they give up extra dots that they could have gotten to do so, which I'm very appreciative of.
Yeah, I mean, good for them.
Yeah, now, as a result of this, GTFO is now flooding into Austria. The Sankt Polten had stabbed Spiral prior, and of course, Klagenfurt had also stabbed Spiral, so the Spiral Alliance, which was holding all of Austria, had kind of dissolved. And now we can see a lot of different units over here, which I believe all belong to GTFO in this area. Starting to push
Finn
across.
right now, I think is held by people up north. I think, but I'm not even sure.
That's not Bregan's, right? That might be Fire? No, it's Smyrna, I think.
That's Smyrna. Yeah, that sounds
sorry,
right.
Quail is this player.
Yeah, Quail, who's then in Smyrna. Yeah. That sounds right. I was like,
Yep.
Finn is the place you've been convoying into, so I assume that's us. And then who's in the rift right now?
I don't know who this player is. That is... They look very green. Is that...
But it's not Mirage, and it's not Crossroads.
I feel like it's this player up here who must have been forced down. Maybe that was one of the Sweden or North Sea Alliance going in to try and attack Clag and then getting pushed that way. That would make more sense, because that looks the same shade to me as that up there. Right, so, yeah, that's where we left off. I am now in the same alliance as Ezio. Is there anything you want to say before we look at these moves in spring 1910, Ezio?
Sure, we can look at the spring moves, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, spring moves are fine.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about what happened to you here?
Yeah, so my spring moves this phase, are weird. You'll notice, not a whole lot of my units move anywhere. Right, yeah. Carmelon tries to go to South Spiral, and then, it doesn't quite get there. And then Ghost Basin tries to go to Carmelon 1, and oops, doesn't quite get there. And then Ankara, oops, it bounces in Journey. That's sad. And then I do this convoy into Bridge, when I know that Bridge and Izmir are self-bouncing, so, oh no, I don't quite get anything. This was all intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I like where my units are. I would kind of prefer to have a little bit. If I could teleport units around, I would rather have some units in different places. But I don't want to be leaving into the spirals right now. Certainly not right now. There's no dots to gain there. And as a refresher from everyone from last phase, I've attempted to join Fire to get Fire to stop Partridge from winning. Fire said no, they don't care. They'd rather see Partridge win than me, explicitly. And they're just here to, global peace and get everyone to draw, and they think I'm full of shit and talking about Partridge's win threat. And, me pointing out all these people that have given her dots and that everyone's walking away from her just as much as they're walking away from me. In fact, significantly more so. because people are just like choosing to give her dots and then like choosing to leave, whereas I'm like using all of my effort to get people to move away and to leave and to give me dots, to getting a lot of flame for it. So she's just getting it all without having to do anything for it. And this is terrifying to me. And I'm looking at this position at the start of this year, and it's like, dude, Partridge got this unit in Istanbul, which can take Adana. She's got a fleet in Pheasant, which can head to Konya, like it did, to take Densley. She's got her fleet in Handel Basin, which can take Samson. She's got her army in Grouse, which can take any number of centers. And so she can stab and go to 4, and go +4 this phase, and she can potentially stab and then like she's already at 6, just as big as me, and then if she gets +4, she's at 10. She only needs to get 5, and it's unclear to me if the rest of the alliance can stop her.
Mm-hmm.
If Partridge stabs this year and I don't do anything, I think she just wins the game. And as much as GTFO is about someone in GTFO winning, I want that person to be me, not anybody else. And so I look at this and I feel obligated to make a move, and I think my time has come. I don't think I can wait any longer. I've been looking at the potential stab now for years, and if Partridge had moved like in an insane manner in the spring, like if she'd managed to get out of Handel Basin, for example, or if some of her neighbors had moved closer to her, like the way that Izmir and Peacock are sitting there just like slowing things down a little bit, if there was anyone like that for Partridge, I would feel less terrified of this game, but there isn't, right? There's one army in or one fleet, excuse me, in Triangle Basin, and other than that, every unit east of the Izmir line is Partridge,
Yep.
right? I mean, okay, Fallen East Coast, right? That army in Tallest, right? Okay, sure, but like that's not enough to stop. We've established how easy it is for me to get to 15 last episode, and we can look at that again. But if Partridge gets those +4 dots that I was talking about, I don't think anyone can stop her from like getting Lighthouse, right? She's in Quarry, by the way. I didn't mention that, but if somehow she gets a Lighthouse, that'd be an extra one. But like she could probably take Lighthouse, Van, Kayseri, maybe Quail, maybe Bursa, whatever. It's unclear, but I think it's pretty likely Partridge just wins. So okay, I've got to make a stab now, and I'm gonna have to make a stab to go for the win myself. Um, and I'm expecting it to be a fight between me and Partridge, where the two of us are huge, and then we are gonna grind out to try to race to 15, and we can pull in the rest of the people. Where I pull people to try to slow down Partridge, Partridge pulls in people to try to slow down me, and then who knows how that goes. What this means is it's imperative that I don't get units out into South Spiral. My units in Carmelond, if I could have pulled Carmelond back into Ghost Basin without being too transparent, I absolutely would have. But I felt like that would have been too transparent, and so I didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, what you're doing
yeah.
is kind of transparent anyway, right? Because you could have just gone into Carmelon 2 and it would have avoided this whole issue of being bounced back.
Yeah,
That
but like
feels
I've
like
been
a
in.
very obvious. I mean, it could be explained as a tactical mistake, but you're a good enough player that I wouldn't. I
I
wouldn't
mean,
believe that.
I've made tactical mistakes before, but no, people pointed this out, and the argument is that I only want it to be. I don't want to be in both places in Carmelond, right? I want to be able to convoy with my unit in Ghost Basin. There's potential for convoys to happen, and so I don't want to be in Carmelond 1 and 2. I only would want to be in Carmelond 1 if I'd made it out to South Spiral. And
Right.
so people pointed this out, and then I have this theoretical justification for this, and I don't know. Again, I kind of did stuff and people bought or didn't. Partridge didn't buy that much, but it's like, what was Partridge gonna do? I felt like Partridge was gonna stab anyways, and so it's like, I don't know. But so maybe I should have just pulled my fleet back. Actually, looking back on it, I don't know. This game I did a whole lot of feel like it's the moves. If you look at the moves, then they kind of look like I'm trying to get out. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the important part, right? Like if you look at the move and don't think about it for more than like 10 seconds, maybe it'll be fun. Um, And I think most people who looked at my position weren't thinking about it for more than 10 seconds.
Yeah, I can confirm as someone outside of the Turkey sphere, right? I certainly wasn't thinking about it very much. We all had our own things to focus on elsewhere, right? And we're like, well, if something happens in there, that's for them to deal with, right? I think there was a general feeling that you and Partridge would balance each other out, no matter what.
Hmm.
So there wasn't much call for anyone else to look at what was going on in there.
Yep.
Yeah. I do also need to say there were, as this is obviously a bit of a meme game in terms of its size, right? It's had a lot of pretty serious politics for what is a meme game, but the actual map itself is very much a meme. People are entering meme style orders. I think some of these were like build an oil refinery, and the mods decided to signal that on the map in this phase by putting little stars and little houses and stuff around the units. They're all effectively holds, these units. So you can see there's a lot of units not doing anything, even outside of where Ezio is trying to not do anything, right? You're being a
Yeah,
little
but
more
like,
convincing with it.
yeah, right? Because other people are just sitting there holding, and I'm like, look, I did a move with this unit. There's a chance I let South Spiral. Instead of saying Ghost Based and hunts for gold
Yep.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think a big part of this is also just how the map works, because you can see, especially with the large ocean provinces, there's only so many units you can get through at once, and with an absolute mega alliance in the center here, a lot of units are just waiting their turn to leave the queue. Right? You can see Crossroads is supposed to be being convoyed over to wherever this
Or
is going,
Tenemar.
to Teacup, but
Yeah, but
ends up not taking it. But that was supposed to go over a bunch of these fleets and therefore pin a lot of these other fleets in. Well, that fleet specifically, I guess. And similar things are happening over here.
and the Harper
Nile
Ocean
and
Enamar. Yep.
sorry, which?
Yeah, and it's the Harper Ocean, the Nile Enamar. Very funny. Like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Um, right. Was there anything else you wanted to mention in here then?
Well, Fire declares war on us this phase, I
Oh
think.
boy.
So after the spring moves going, Fire's like, hey, we're gonna go to war with GTFO. And I'm like, ugh, that's what's gonna get Partridge to stab for sure. If Partridge was on the fence, and I thought that Partridge had a pretty good position, if Fire attacks GTFO, that means that they're gonna get units into Stormwall, get units into Essence, and try to hit Syria. Fire can't mess with Eastern GTFO much at all. They can really only mess with me. And
Yeah.
if I'm the only one who's going to keep Partridge in check, Fire declaring war on us and looking to convoy into Essence and the rest of this shit means that Partridge is going to stab and I won't be. And Partridge is just going to win if I don't do anything.
Hmm.
Right? So it, like, just more and more information really did make me say, I am going to stab Partridge and the Alliance this year. And I need to make that stab as brutal as possible, basically. Um,
Yeah.
I make some mistakes along the way, and with my initial assessment here. So, looking at this fall, I
Yep.
have 6 units. At best, I could theoretically go plus 12, and that will get me to a plus 6 will
Plus
get me to
six. Yeah.
12, 3 off from winning. Um, Sadly, I mean, I can just do that. So there's a couple of ones that are guaranteed just gonna work. So Constantinople taking chicken, Ankara taking Marash. Other ones that are less likely to succeed. We've got my unit in Ghost Basin is going to take one of Istanbul or Esk. And which one? Well, Istanbul is much better. Having a fleet take Istanbul means that I have more pressure on pheasants. I can put pressure on Esk still. But if I take Esk this year, then I can put a fleet into Istanbul next year. And potentially next spring, depending on what I do with Carmelon and how the moves actually shake out. So I think Esk ends up being what I go for. And as part of this, actually, I make an agreement with Partridge to get them to do something else. I forget exactly what I get to agree Partridge to do with their unit. but I think it's going to fork literally. Um, and it's like I don't. It's like, oh no, fire's going to attack us. We need to get more people in Carmelon because they're going to try to take Carmelon from us, and like we need to get. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I talked to Partridge. A lot of this stuff happened near the end of the phase. Let me keep analyzing the stab here, first. So I'm gonna Ghost Basin is gonna take one of those two, but that's only 50-50. Then we've got Peacock and Izmir. Now, for a while, Izmir, like Peacock for a while was sitting in Peacock, so I couldn't take anything. I got them convoyed out through deals with Mersin, whose fleet is in Izmir. Um, and they've been doing stuff to make the stab not, to make my stab quote unquote not great. But it's fine. So I've looked at this for a little bit, and if they go for a self bounce in Smyrna again, then what I kind of want to do is I kind of want to take Peacock, and that's it. Like I would love to support Izmir into Smyrna and then convoy my army into Izmir itself, because that would be like from Ankara, for example, or maybe Gaz, just convoy one of the armies there. Because a fleet in Smyrna would be alone, and I have an army in Izmir, which is just really good for taking like Quail and Peacock and the rest. I mean, any unit in Izmir is sweet. But I think I managed to convince Izmir to just move their fleet to Flightless Basin. And I think I get Mersin to just not defend. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to actually truly win this game, I need to get pretty lucky. I really need to get to 12 here. So I'm going to bet that I actually made that work. And I'm going to go for Peacock and Izmir this phase. Um, and that's a big one. And like it's this huge risk where again I'm playing for broke. Really got to take everything. I don't have like
Yeah.
I
There's
want to be in position to go after right because I'm only gonna get to 12.
yeah,
What's that
but
mean?
you haven't talked about what this unit needs to take, which I assume will try and slip into Constanta or Varna, given its
Yeah,
position.
it
Um,
really
that seems
I think
unlikely, right?
it's not. No, I can. Varna is someone that I can make do anything I want. I've been
Okay.
able to convince Varna to just again do basically anything. And so I could walk into Varna or Constanta. I'm very confident. I could
Mhm.
because like remember that Constanta can't go into the center of Varna. Those they're adjacent by armies only, but not by fleets.
Oh,
So I
fair.
don't go for Varna. I think that I will not hold it next year. Um, I am hopeful that Varna likes me enough to not really care to mess with me afterwards. And so if I don't take Varna, if I don't take a center off of him, and I'm like, look, we've been working together for a while, and you're not going to win this game anyways, right? Just don't mess with me. Stay alive, stay happy. And if I take Varna, I really can't hold it, right? I'm moving my fleet and Ghost Basin into one of Partridge's centers here. And so that's just not going to happen. Furthermore, I'm only going to take one of these two centers this year. And so if I move it into Ghost Basin instead of trying to take a center from Varna, then I'm able to take the other one in the spring of next year. I can get there just a little bit faster.
Oh, I
And
see.
that's
Yeah.
potentially super relevant. So I'm going to take one of, I think I take Esk in in this fall, and I'm planning on taking Istanbul in the spring of next year. And again, if I take Istanbul in the spring of next year, and I've already taken Chicken, I really wish I could have put an army in Fireback, and maybe I should have tried to do that. Because if I could have put an army in Chicken in the fall of this phase, then I have more pressure on Pheasant. Like, these fleets and these coasts of the Bulgarias are so ineffective at pushing into other Bulgarias.
Yeah.
Um, but again, like, Peacock was the main one who was, like, yelling about this, and so I felt kind of forced to build a fleet to, like, not again be so unbelievably transparent. Um, Fleet's obviously east coast of Peacock. A Fireback would be better. And so look at all of this. I need to see how this phase shakes out, but I think it's pretty likely that I get to deny um, Partridge one build. And so if Partridge doesn't stab, and it's just doing everything that I think Partridge is going to do, and everything works out the way that I dream, I'm going to go up to 11. And if I'm at 11, I'm going to be in one of Esker Istanbul. I'm going to take the other. I'm going to be in Izmir, which is huge. I'm going to have an army in Peacock, which is huge. Then I'm going to have a bunch of pressure on Quail. I'm going to have pressure on the center Mersin and the center in Smyrna. So that's three centers plus. And then Istanbul is a center that I'm probably going to have. And then I'm going to have built this fleet and fire back East Coast and moved it into waterfowl. And if nobody stabs, no one is going to be able to contest that. And that's going to be amazing. And I'm probably going to get something else. So that's going to put me at plus 5 centers next year, theoretically. Plus, to go with the 11 that I already have means I can even afford to lose a center somewhere and be totally fine.
Yeah.
So that's assuming Partridge doesn't stab. And if Partridge does stab, then the board is going to need me to keep Partridge from winning. So things will be fine. I've got this my partner in Konya who's still in Lighthouse who can maybe do something to help out, and like the rest of the GTFO would be like, oh well, we've got Partridge and Ezio, and they're going to choose to throw to. And look, let's be real, they would throw to Partridge in the universe. But maybe people down like Merison, who is the person who I could take a lot of bots from and was in this area, maybe would choose to throw to me. I'm not sure exactly, but if Partridge stabs, it's terrifying. Don't love it. If Partridge doesn't stab, then okay, I was too aggressive and I stabbed when I probably could have waited even longer and let more armies get convoyed away. But I'm not even sure if I can wait that much longer because again, Fire has like said they declare war on GTFO and like they're gonna make progress against me.
Yeah, and
On
right
that
now
note,
you have these buffer zones in the side, which means it's going to take a long time for these fleets to get into position against you, right? But they don't
yeah,
hold forever. Crossroads and Syria, they will start getting fleets in, so you're really on a timer here. Um,
yeah, so they can be convoying into Essence and Stormal. And your point about being on a timer is one that I definitely felt. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna take me like 2 years to win if I could go for it right now. What can I do before then? Well, Syria is pretty vulnerable right now, given that there are no units defending it, and Fire has two hostile fleets. And Syria's been a loyal member of GTFO who has been friendly to Fire for most of the game. Their fleet, by the way, for Syria, if you scroll up, I think it's in West Spiral at this point.
yeah,
So great job, Syria, to stay alive and to keep doing good work, working with Fire to make things happen. I get Syria to join Fire. Um, I do a gamble where um, I made a bet 50-50 heads or tails, and if I lost, I would need to not call out Peacock for being a traitor to the Alliance like I had been doing. Um, and that I would need to basically I wouldn't apologize to Peacock, but I would have like they would be pardoned for their past crimes, and I would need to consider that. And if I won, then Syria would join Fire. Because if Syria joins Fire, then Fire would need to find a way to give Syria a build, or they couldn't take the center this phase. And
which
that just
means
gives me a
no,
whole extra phase.
yeah, no fleet coming in here for a phase is huge if you're on a if you're looking at a 2 year time span to win the game, right?
Yeah.
That's a a whole quarter of the time needed to win the game.
Yeah,
That they're
and this
giving up.
next well, it's there's only 3 phases left, right? I have this
Oh yeah,
fall,
that's true.
and then
Because
the
the
other
spring
two.
as
And
well.
so if I can delay that for just one more phase, it means they can move into Syria and move into Storm Basin, but they will not take a center. They will just be in Storm Basin. So if I'm really saying I'm going to win this game in 2 years, I'm going to finish this year and then go next year to win, I don't even have to defend Storm Basin.
Yeah,
That's huge.
that is.
So they agree, and I'm pretty sure. And Syria, like, we do the gamble. I get lucky. I win the coin toss. That's fine. And then Syria joins Fire, and like Fire has this Ember status, or whatever, and they put Syria in that status. Um, yeah. Oh, jeez. What else? What else was going on here? There's a bunch of nonsense that's going on in Austria still, and Crossroads and Mirage are still working with me. They're still like happy with me, and
Yeah,
Crossroads has offered to throw to me, notably. At some point, Crossroads has been like, "Hey, everyone's saying they want Partridge to win. Ezio, if you're close to winning, I'll help you win." And I look at that, and I'm really appreciative of it. I just can't take the dot, right? I cannot hold that Crossroads dot because of all of the hostile fleets outside of it, right? They can have
yep.
two plus this army and bridge that's going to be annoying. So like for me to get into Crossroads, it's just such a pain. And like with them bouncing a journey, so I can't get in there. Like I appreciate the offer of the crossroads stop, but it's just not one that I can actually keep and hold. I need to be more internal, further away from the rest of the nonsense.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's me. I'm gonna make this huge stab on the entirety of GTFO, and if Partridge goes for the stab, then it's gonna be a very much a two-horse race, and then we'll see GTFO and this throw shenanigans. And if it's not, then I just have to play my way into a solo
Yeah.
in a 150 person game. Wouldn't that be sweet?
It would be quite the achievement.
All right, CaptainMeme, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Austria being nonsense to some degree. In my own, my own play at the moment, and the reason we're primarily focusing on you, is that there's not really that much going on with me at this point. I'm part of the GTFO brigade who's trying to take over Austria right now, right? Dornburn is on my side, Chicken is on my side. This is Crossroads, I think, in Steyr? No, it's not Crossroads, it's someone in GTFO. I don't remember who that is.
Is it? I think that's Crossroads.
Is that Crossroads?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Crossroads up to 2.
Oh, right, yeah, this is Crossroads, this is Mirage, and then these are, this one is a GTFO army, this one is a GTFO army.
I think that's Izmir.
Yeah, there's just so many people here, I wasn't aware of who was who at all. I've made it clear that one of my objectives at this point is to retake Feldkirch before the end of the game. So I have approached Dornburn about this and said, hey, at some point, would you be willing to give me Feldkirch back? Because right now, Dornburn is kind of role-playing as my landlord, which is an interesting one. But we've agreed, okay, first priority is to kill St. Polten. That's going to be what we do right now, and is why we're all moving this way. Then we'll figure things out from there and try and arrange that swap. And you can see everything moving in this direction. And then on the next phase, everyone kind of realizes, hang on, we've got like way too many units in this area. We don't need this many armies to kill St. Polten. And I was just like, okay, I might just head back to Timisoara then. Because, I mean, I can go to the clean map for this, actually. Because it's open, right, there's a lot of temptation for someone to just walk in there, so I may as well just walk back. You don't need my armies here, and everyone's fine with that, so I just wander back again when we look at this next phase. There's really...
The luxury of saying, oh, I'm just gonna, spend my whole year moving one place and then moving back with my units, and,
yeah, exactly.
You don't have, this giant mega alliance breathing down your throat. You're thinking, oh god, this game's gonna end in 2 years if the only way I can win is right. Goddamn.
But I'm kind of doing the same thing that you were trying to do earlier in the game, right? And you successfully did earlier in the game, which is, I'm now in this mega alliance, everyone around me is in this alliance, and everyone is moving their units that way. I'm gonna find an excuse for me to hang back around where all the empty centers will be, and just wait for them to leave, and then hopefully we'll have an opportunity later, right?
Yeah, in my defense, I got them to leave.
Yeah, you absolutely managed that.
No one was leaving of their own volition.
That is true. There is one other important thing that's going on in this Austria right here, which is the Australian Austria. You may notice that Leonding and Bregenz are now fighting. They used to both be in Australia. I think it's this phase, even, that Leonding makes an application to join fire. Because you can see there are fire fleets coming down from their north, there are fire armies landing in their homeland, right? I think this is GTFO, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's GTFO, yeah.
Yeah, but GTFO were kind of friendly with fire at this point, at least.
Except for the point that fire declared war on us, but yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, to the Austrians, it was very much like we were being squeezed between these mega alliances, and all of us were trying to find ways to survive, and you can see that myself and Dornburn managed that, right? Varna managed that by
joining one of the alliance. Right.
Yeah, and Klagenfurt and Plovdiv have kind of managed that by being enormous and completely impossible to tackle, although fire is still advancing on them, right, very slowly. But these Austrias up here are in real danger. And so Leonding goes, okay, you know what, fire, you can just have Brasov, that's fine, as long as you let me join your alliance, and I'll go and attack the rest of Austria for you. And they're Fire like, yeah, sure, you can join. I mean, it was more than just a yeah, sure. They had to go through the whole bureaucratic process of voting on stuff and whatnot, but they did accept Leonding, and so then Bregenz is left to fight for his life because he is the only member of Australia left here. I think Ruse might also be, but like Ruse is not doing all that much at this point, so now Leonding is coming in as a Fire member. You can kind of see that the Mega Alliances have won out here, even though a lot of Austria is still Austrian. The surviving Austrian players have had to join these Mega Alliances in order to survive.
But I must point out, right? It's not like the Mega Alliances won out in the sense that they eliminated the players who were in these positions, right? The number of Austrian players who started out in Austria that actually were eliminated is very few. So, yes, the name of what organization you're in has changed, but because these mega alliances didn't care about actually invading, they didn't get anything out of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, the dots that, like, original GTFO members have gotten, right? Crossroads has a thing in Stayer. Chicken has gotten, let's say, two, Crescent and Burgos. And then Marash got the one from Varna at the moment, but, like, can't hold that, obviously.
And also,
So it's also in a mark. So this whole thing about like the Mega Alliance won, quote unquote, sure, in name only, right? They have inducted a new member who's previously doing something, and they're gonna get a coastal dot out of the deal. Okay, sure, but then this member just it doesn't matter what alliance your name is, right? Who cares? He's getting dots, like. It's a thing that, again, from a map painting perspective, from this like descriptions post fact, right? Yes, this alliance is big. They have grown, but like for having whatever 20 members, how many people were in Fire, right? They've gained not that many dots, and they've inducted a bunch more members to do it. So like, and same thing for GTFO, right? They should never have let CaptainMeme in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you, right? This is why I wanted to keep my alliances small, but then the small alliance didn't really work either because we were just too small to do anything. But the idea of the Mega Alliance is it's just a really interesting one from a philosophical point of view because obviously the players in Fire, a lot of the players in Fire are looking at this as, you know, this will feel like a victory if we paint the entire map fire color. It doesn't matter who owns the dot. And you can see that they've been doing this since the start, right? Because most of them are, well, basically everyone who was in Fire at the start is still alive here, and has managed to push out. But none of them have really grown very much. They've gotten to 2 centers or 3 centers, but as an alliance, they've been pretty successful. Like, really very successful when you look at how far their alliance borders are, especially in forcing other people to join their alliance as well. Yeah, so from that point of view, it's a success. But from a diplomacy, are you getting closer to winning the game point of view, it might be a success if you could transform that in the end game into a position that you can walk into those dots from. But you need to get to a decent center count in order to do that, right? In order to have the units to walk into those dots.
It's worth noting, the end year is 1915.
Yes.
So that is an important part of my decision to go for it here. Because, yeah, I think the window is only going to be 2 years, but maybe it's going to be a little longer. But, like, it means that if you're at, let's say, 3 centers right now, you need to get 3 centers a year for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you need to double this year, and then after you've doubled, you can get fewer, right? You can get half, like, you can only then get 3, which is half again. But, like, if you stab Fire, surely there's going to be huge ramifications for it, and they're not going to let you get away with it. And you need to be in a position to actually make a stab to get 3 dots. And, like, that's not a trivial setup, right? It's not trivial to double. So, right, can they win this game? Can anyone in Fire win the game by 1915? At this point, I think the answer is just no. And I think the answer's kind of been no for a while. But who knows? Maybe they'll make a play for something.
Yeah. It's also possible that maybe someone in Fire could preach their way to victory, right? By going, look, we need to get a Fire contender. If, for example, they see you going for it in the near future and are like, oh god, look, Ezio is going to win this game unless someone else beats him to it or something, then maybe they can say, look, everyone needs to support me and throw to me. But at that point, if your win condition is 2 years, right, then no
Yep.
one in fire can get to 15 supply centers in time because they're all too small at this point, even
Yeah,
if
and like
everyone is
notably,
throwing
right,
to them.
I'm not
Uh,
telling everyone that I'm trying to
yeah,
win the
yeah.
game next, right?
So they'll have
Obviously,
1
this
year
is not a
win.
common thing, right? This is classic, like, everyone else is saying, "Oh no, Ezio's so big and scary," but it's reached the boy poo cried wolf territory where everyone's been saying in every phase for the entire game, so nobody cares.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I don't. I think actually, very few people expected me to stab like this year, right? They
Yep.
say like again, every year they expected me to stab, so like they were eventually right and they got it, but it was like, well, he didn't stab last year, the year before, and like I've had 3 dot stabs, then 4 dot stabs, then 4 dot stabs again, and like I think I even had a 5 dot stab, and I just didn't take any of these.
Mhm.
And so now I have another 5 dot stab, but this time the position, right, the global strategy I think dictates I should make the play here. And so, yeah, the point is it's a 1 year window, right? They're going to look at the board after I stab and be like, oh crap, Ezio's going to win next year. Hey, let's all throw to our biggest player. Uh,
It was on three
uh,
dots. Yeah.
who's on 3 dots, right? Like it doesn't matter. Also, by the way, when Fire like rejected me, I'm pretty sure they rejected the concept of throwing to someone to let them win in general too.
All right.
I think they were also like, no, we hate that idea. How dare anyone try to throw? That's disgusting.
I mean,
Or
that is
something.
generally my view on it as well. So,
Sure.
but yes,
But
it
like
is.
you also try to win the game that you're playing. Anyways,
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
that's what I got.
Right. So, I'll move forward. I'll just quickly look at the 4 moves in this Austria because they're not
Yeah. And
particularly
then we'll look
relevant.
at
Right. It's just
the other
like
stuff.
I'm going back. You can see GTFO advancing and accidentally killing one of their armies at the same time, which is hilarious and would set them back a massive amount because I think that player's SC is Erzraum, so they'd have to rebuild it there and then get it convoyed all the way back again.
Yeah, but good
But
news. They
hey,
actually, I think, would much rather have that army in Ezram
yes,
afterwards.
yeah, yeah. Given what happens in the south, you can see
Yeah.
Bregenz does manage to survive by getting Ruse's help. So Australia is just these 2 players now. They're trying desperately to survive and just about managing it. I think this is a GTFO player helping them.
That's
And
quite, yeah.
then, yeah, I just walked back to these centers and everyone else has left. So I'm like, yeah, that looks good to me. And Sankt Polten dies is another very important thing that happens here.
Yeah.
That's basically it for Austria, so I'm gonna move down to the important part of the board, Ezio. This goes incredibly well, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Everything goes the way I want it to, basically.
Hmm.
Um, this is just like I walk into all of the dots. Oh, it's being moved into Feather Basin 2, not the other one.
Not Flightless Basin.
I've
Was this what was
not Flightless
arranged?
Basin.
Or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay.
I knew every move that was happening in this area of GTFO.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I knew all of this stuff. So I get into all of the dots is the answer. I get all the dots I could have gotten, which is +5, which gets me to 11, and I'm in Ghost Basin 2, and Partridge didn't stab, which I felt like was good news at the time because if Partridge had stabbed, Partridge would have gone like +4 minus the one that I took from them, so they would have only been +3. So she could have still built and countered my unit in Waterfowl. But instead, Partridge was not. I think Partridge got a dot elsewhere. Like if they have a unit somewhere else, but because I sniped Esk from them, then she wasn't able to build, which means that nobody can build bordering Waterfowl. So I get to put down a single fleet and fireback and move it into Waterfowl and have control of it, which is massive. It's so nice. And then I have my army in Peacock. So like my army in Peacock, my fleet in Izmir means I have 2 on Quail, which is huge. I have a fleet that borders Merson, which is going to be great. No one can contest that. I have eliminated Peacock, so that army and bridge is going to get disbanded. So that's not going to be an issue anymore. And like things just went really, really well for me in this turn. The other absolutely massive part of this turn is that I got Milan to stab.
Oh, you
You'll
got that to
notice that
happen. I thought that was just a coincidence that it happened on the
no,
same phase.
I like due to all of this nonsense, I was like, hey Milan, remember how annoying it is to work with fire the entire game? Because Milan has talked to me and like had been doing stuff, and knew that this was going to be a big war. Milan liked Syria, and Milan was the one who would have to take Syria, in whatever. And like Fire kind of wanted that to happen. I think they're like, we don't care that Syria's joined Fire. We want to kill them anyways. But Milan was like, I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Um, so I messaged. This wasn't like one of those like hand over like smacking someone in the head to be like a stab. It's like, hey, dude, I think this is your chance to get him back for all that shit over the rest of the game. And Milan did it. And as a result, like, there's no army in Stormwall. There's no unit in Syria. There's nothing even in Essence.
Yeah, that's
This is
absolutely incredible. Like, the fact that these units specifically move and it cancels this convoy is so big. That's enormous. It
yeah,
means the closest fire gets to you is Journey South Coast, which is blocked by this army in Crossroads anyway.
yeah. Crossroads isn't my thought. So that fleet at Journey South Coast is completely irrelevant to me.
Hmm.
So I look at this phase, and like just based on these results, I can't see the entirety of the tactics next year, but I'm like, dude, I feel really good. This is nuts, right? I'm taking Istanbul. I'm gonna take Quail. Maybe I take Mersin. Maybe I take Spearna. Who knows? But like, I'm not losing anything next year.
Yeah, I'll
Well,
just
there's
move to
this
the
chicken.
clean map
Yeah,
just to show how dominant this position is, right? Like, the fact that chicken can't get to pheasant in one turn is a bit annoying,
it's so
this being the
brutal.
fleet.
It's
Yeah.
so brutal. If this was an army, right? I just walk into Pheasant and I take Istanbul, and then like, oh yeah, oh it would be so glorious.
Yes.
But I can't. It's a fleet. Fleets suck. But hey, some you make sacrifices for things. It still helps with Istanbul, and like fleets in Istanbul are still pretty good.
Yep. But yeah, everything is like, this is absolutely beautiful position. And it looks quite like, not like an easy stroll to 15, because you can still be blocked by things like Grouse in Quail and maybe Featherbase in Taps Izmir to make sure that you don't get that, right?
Yeah,
And
Feather
this
Basin's
unit is a
annoying.
bit overloaded, having to try and take Mersin and get this player into Quail. Well, this player, your unit into Quail.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You're used to having to get other units around to get this game of nonsense, but at this point, right, with 11 dots, it's all me at this point. This green. I also love how I have only one bit of green that's not in a supply center, and that's Carmelond.
the,
Um, I
yep.
think I've only moved into fleet provinces and supply centers this game. No, I convoyed to Fork. I did convoy to Fork that one time. Sorry,
Yes, and
sorry,
then
sorry. I
convoy
forgot about
back
that.
immediately, right?
Yeah, and then it's like, ugh, this doesn't feel right. But yeah, so like this is the position, and I'm
Mhm.
like, holy crap! This could not have gone better. And a lot of people at this point start to actually give up. They're like, oh crap, Ezio just won. We
Yep.
told you so, GTFO. You guys are so stupid. I can't believe you let him do this. How could you possibly let Ezio get in a position like this? We were telling you for the entire game we needed to attack him. I can't believe it. Oh my god. Yeah,
Uh,
no, there was a whole lot of that raging going on.
yep. So there's a lot of super interesting stuff that happens in the press on this phase. I don't know if you want to talk about the stuff that concerned you specifically first. I mean, it all kind of concerns you because it
At
all
this
comes
point,
off of what you did. But
yeah, at this point,
yeah,
everything kind of concerns me. The big thing is that every other person on the map basically says, "All right, guys, top priority, kill Ezio." Agreed. Agreed. And so outside of GTFO, everyone on the map is 100%. We're going to kill Ezio right now. He must die.
yep. So it's really important
Yeah,
to note that, like, Fire has been looking. A lot of people in Fire have been looking for an opportunity to go for you for a very long time. And as you mentioned in the previous phase, they kind of did declare war on you the turn before.
yeah,
They were
they did.
trying to convoy units and stuff like that. So of course now you've given them the opportunity to. They are like full steam ahead. We need to kill Ezio, and a lot of them are very vocal in trying to get other people to join that group as well.
Yeah,
Um, and there is
Milan Stab
another.
really undercut that notably, right? Like the Milan Stab
Yes.
really brutalized Fire's efforts here because they took Turin And so there's no more armies to convoy in the area. Sea of Ice is vacant now, so they have to go through East Passage to do convoys. And if Milan pushes and like builds an army in Milan, a fleet in Venus, huh? I didn't know
Yeah.
that's what that one was called. I thought that was Venice. Anyways, oops, not it. Right, there's like a huge pressure in the center of fire now, and like maybe it's not going to happen. So they also have to figure out what they're going to do with Milan to stop me. And yeah, now you can keep talking about fire with the rest of the world.
Yeah. I
Sure.
mean, the Milan stuff specifically is quite relevant here, right? Because this all happens. I think it all happens in the builds fires negotiations with Milan.
Yeah.
There is a pretty solid precedent for fire to just murder people who go back on their word. There haven't been a huge number of events of this because people in fire have enforced this pretty rigorously when it has happened, and that's set an example that means people are scared to stab fire, right? If you go in and you take 2 extra dots, doesn't matter because you're having 20 units converge on you and murder you the turn after. So that's why people haven't done stuff like Milan did here. But Milan did decide to do it, which means technically fire would murder them. But in this circumstance, fire can't really go and murder them because if they spend their effort killing Milan, then they can't spend their effort stopping Ezio from winning the game. So they have to choose one of those two things to prioritize, and they are pretty solidly in the camp of we need to stop Ezio winning the game.
Yeah, because
So,
they hate me.
yep.
This person who's been one of their most, like, he was one of their generals for a big portion of this game, who just made a brutal stab on his own alliance. He's like a level 3 on the hatred scale. I'm like a 9. They hate my guts.
Yep. So they actually offer Milan a way out. They're like, okay, look, you can, if you carry on attacking us, then Ezio is going to win. We will come back and murder you, and you won't get anything else of this. Or we can come to a deal where I think they decide that Milan can give back 1 dot or something and keep the rest, and then lead the efforts going in against you, or at least work specifically with them. And Milan doesn't really have another way out of this, right? They can go full chaos and go, I'm going to build those units and attack you anyway, but they've been offered a way out, and a lot of people in Fire are actually quite convincing, especially with the bureaucracy that goes on with it, right? And introducing all these massive votes and going, look, Milan, all these people are in favour of you surviving if you do these things that we ask you to. That isn't really that much of a sacrifice because you're only having to give like 1 dot back. So come on, survive the game. Try and play for your best interests as opposed to just destroying everything, right? And Milan concedes to that and goes, yeah, I'm going to do that. You probably had more of an insight into that conversation because that wasn't concerning me as much.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't look at that much.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Milan undercut fire stab completely. At most, they can convoy an army into Essence now. That's far more than I was expecting, and I can't really ask Milan for more.
Yeah.
So I let them do whatever they wanted at this point because yeah, that was fine. Like,
Yeah.
they did their best.
So that's how things go in Fire. Fire manages to convince Milan to come back on side. Also to note, most of the players in France are now in Fire. Perhaps the one exception is Reims. I don't remember if they've stabbed Fire at this point or if they're about to, but they are a bit of an agent of chaos. But of course that doesn't really concern you that much because these French players aren't particularly relevant to you.
None of
right?
these have been relevant to me for the entire game. Like a fleet in Bay of Nantes maybe was going to support Smyrna from East Passage into Valencia one time in the entire game. Other than that, they've been completely irrelevant.
Yeah. So Fire controls a lot of the world. They're sort of leading the coalition from the south against you. In the north, I repurposed the Empire. Because I've been head of the Empire for basically most of the game at this point, right? Without it having any purpose whatsoever. It's just been an excuse for me to put the Emperor in my title. And I've got a huge number of people, most of whom have just been stabbed by you, in this Mega and Meme alliance. And so I go, alright, everyone come together. It is time for the Empire to have a purpose. We are going to lead the Northern Coalition against Ezio. So the Empire was sort of repurposed at this point into a bit of a motivational alliance to try to get people's spirits up. Because as you mentioned before, a lot of people after your stab were just like, "Oh, it's too late. The people around Ezio just screwed this up. Well, we may as well give up." I was not happy with that. I really wanted people to fight back.
You would never have lived this down.
Yeah. I think you specifically. This may have also been part of the reason why you didn't want me in GTFO in the first place, because you knew I would be like.
You don't give up, right?
Yeah.
You will actually fight to the end, and you're like, look, he's probably going to win, but there's a chance he doesn't, and we have to push and stop this from happening. And so you got everyone to fight way harder than the other place would have. And it's like, look, full respect. Annoying as shit.
So I tried to use that as like a uniting factor. It did, at this point, GTFO blows up, right? Because you were the main thing holding it together. But there are some people who form, I think it's down here, they form a new GTFO, and then up here they form some other named alliance. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then up here we now have Cold, which is Chicken, Odysseus, La Emperor, and Dawnburn. We're the northern wing of GTFO. We've split off into our own alliance, but as part of that, I'm now leading players who were in the Empire against you.
So the GTFO stuff, alliances, you have your northern one, then the southeast formed KFC.
This one here? Okay.
Yes. Formed KFC. I forget what it stood for, but it stood for something.
Well, it's presumably to do with turkey being a bird and KFC also being a chicken.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on.
Yeah, it's something to do with something. I forget exactly what it was, but they formed KFC was what they did. And importantly, they didn't consider this like a whole new alliance. They were like, we are the last members of GTFO. We are the real members. Everyone else can go suck it.
Mm-hmm.
They were hard by this. Dia was the big one. He was one of the original members of GTFO, and he was one of the people who feathered with Adana, and like he cared about this stuff. And then the Russia wing of GTFO just like, again, you'll notice these are all the people who started the game in Russia anyways. And they were just like, yeah, it's Russia. We're Russia, baby. We're back.
Yes.
And it was just like... it's just like, okay, sure. I don't care about Russia. They can't mess with me, really. One of the things that I realized was, I actually needed to care about Russia a little more. So look at that army in Rostov right now, okay? That little army in Rostov is held actually by Rostov, surprisingly enough. Guess what? That army borders Handel Basin. Guess what? There's a fleet in Handel Basin. Oh, no. Oh, God. Everyone is just... And then, look, there's that army in Samara, right? Man, that army in Samara borders Inward Ocean. Is that going to get convoyed into World's Tear and start making my life worse? Oh, no. And then... with Odysseus joining, like being part of La Empire, and La Empire being repurposed to like exclusively, we are going to hit Ezio. Chicken, I'd stab Chicken. I can't see if any crap to Chicken. She was such a great ally for so long. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. But then their fleets in Carmelond and their fleets in Main Spiral, and oh no. So like they're going to start putting stuff through Carmelond. And at this point I'm like, oh crap, I don't think I'm holding Sanliurfa. Oh no.
So it's going to be a very close run thing, right, in the next year. That's what we're starting to see. It does depend a bit on whether you can convince anyone to work with you. And I do remember one, maybe two success stories on this front. Well, one main success story, which is that we talked to basically everyone in this area about going anti-you. And one person who is very vocally not willing to go anti-you is Crossroads, who has worked with you the entire game, right?
The best sub ever.
Yeah, and they
love Crossroads.
Yeah, they are very happy to continue working with you. And we're like, well, if you continue working with Ezio, we are just going to kill you, right? There's no reason for us to keep you alive. Yeah. But Crossroads stuck to her guns and would not go for you. So this unit here is an enemy.
See, when people throw to me, they're great. They're stands. We love them. They're awesome. When you throw to other people, we hate you. You have no spine. You're not trying to win the game. You're a coward, etc., etc. Very fair, very balanced.
Yes. So that was the main success story. I believe Marash also didn't indicate that they would be willing to help against you.
Well, we're Ash Mart, right?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
it seemingly isn't that much of a problem because Marash is like, whatever at this point. They're not immediately adjacent to here, but they can actually pin in a lot of Varna's fleets in this
Yeah,
position
but
because
like
of where they are.
the thing
Uh,
is, um, pinning in Odysseus's fleets doesn't really matter because of the sheer density of units outside. As we saw with Austria, when the rest of the map tries to push units into a specific area, they can do that pretty effectively. And
yes.
there's enough units around that you're going to be able to start pushing stuff into Carmelon and into Ghost Basin kind of anyways, right? So it doesn't really matter, but it does matter a little bit. And so you get to kill Mirage in a phase, and it slows things down maybe a little bit, but I don't actually think it does.
Hmm. Yeah. And there's some people who are now breathing a sigh of relief, such as Klagenfurt, who has been the public enemy number one for a while with how many dots he's had, right? And
Yeah.
now he's looking at this and going, oh look, there's a new public enemy number one, and he is just like, yeah, I'm chill now. I will happily like cheer you on in going against Ezio.
Yeah, but also Klagenfurt was like, God damn it, Ezio, well played. I don't want you to win though. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think he thought I was. I think he thought I was just done. I think he thought this game is over.
Hmm.
Right? I think so.
Okay, that
Uh,
is possible, but like he
but
was
yeah, sigh of
definitely
relief.
happy that
He's not
he's.
public enemy number one
Yeah,
anymore. That's
yeah.
for damn sure. Yeah, we have a new
Um,
right board leader, Constantinople at 11 centers out of 15.
yep.
Yeah.
All right. In terms, did you? I guess we can move forward and see the
Let's
builds
go
at
to
the very
Winters
least.
because we can
Yeah.
start really looking at
Um,
things. And this is
yeah.
when we have the easiest time to analyze the position.
Yep.
Because I wasn't expecting the two builds from Ezram, right? Remember Ezram had that one disband in Austria in the previous phase, and
Yes.
then they
Yeah.
took over Nile. So Ezram is building. I'd much rather it be Ezram than most other people in GTFO at this moment, because those fleets have a bit to go. But Ezram gets into Bursa, and then it can get to Flightless Basin slash mess with Quail in the fall. And so that fleet in particular, the fleet in Ezram, is annoying. And like, okay, fine, we'll figure out how to make that work. But like that, other than that, I'm the only one building in the area, which is just so good.
Yes. And
Such a
nothing
fan.
else on Waterfowl is enormous, right?
Nothing else on Waterfowl. There couldn't be anything. And
Yep.
so, hell yes. Ah, jeez. So, but I am looking at this, and basically because of the extra convoys that are going to come in from Russia, right? There's a couple of armies that are going to come in, and because everyone in GTFO is just like, oh, actually, I don't care about surviving anymore. Stop Ezio. Oh, and Ufa built. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because everyone's like, I don't care about surviving. I just want Ezio not to win anymore, which is somewhat uncommon in these sorts of games, right? Often people like want to survive at the end and they're like not willing to do anything. This game they did not feel that way at all. So they're like, dude, just convoy me straight into Adana. And so that Rostov army, right, that's gonna get convoyed, it's not to go to Fez or anything, it just goes straight to Adana and just like be right in the heart of pressure on me. And I'm like, oh no. Because that unit gets to Adana, I can't stop it. And by the way, this is public press. Remember, right? Public press means I see every move that they are discussing, and I will know exactly what tactics the entire rest of the map is doing at all times. So I get to know what they're doing. Like they're playing more or less face up against me, um, and that's just amazing, right? You can do so much with this sort of information.
Yep.
So I'm looking at it, and they're gonna get convoys into Adana. I don't remember if they actually convoyed the World's Terror, if they discussed it or not. I assume they would because, like, of course, that's what these units are doing if everyone's all in on stopping me. But the tactics in Russia were suboptimal at the very start, I remember. But, like, the tactics don't matter that much when there's going to be two units in Handel Basin because Ufa's going into Handel Basin and they're going to be convoying into Adana. And so it's like, okay, I get Istanbul, sure, and they're just convoying into Adana, so I don't have to worry about. I'm pretty sure they convoy into Adana anyway, so I don't really have to worry about the rest of it. But like, I need to get into Istanbul. I really wish I had an army in chicken because I could walk into pheasants and like that would be huge right now, but it's only a stupid fleet. So I take Istanbul, I believe, from chicken, and I move Constantinople to backfill, which means I now have pressure on pheasants. Suddenly, Irfa, I remember needing to use to bounce essence. I seem to recall they were going to convoy in there, and my army in Suddenly Irfa can't actually get to adopt this phase without getting convoyed. And so, if since this is the year, all that matters is holding on as much as I can. So let's take essence. Um, then the biggest part of this phase is that I ask for Mersin to move their fleet from Feather Basin into Izmir.
Why would
Because
Mersin do what you asked them to?
because they'll die if they don't. And Mersin wants to survive.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is what we see quite a lot of in Chaos games, right? People wanting to live to the very end of it and going, look, I'm not going to win this game at this point. The only reason to prevent the solo would be if I had a chance at doing well, and I don't, so I'm going to go for what lets me survive. And
Yes.
yeah,
Like,
you were
let's
counting
play
on...
for survival.
There was, like, notably here, Chicken takes off Fang and now has Main Spiral and Camelot, right? Which are going to have to go down here in order to prevent you, and in order to prevent you winning, and their centers are here, so they just have to trust people don't walk into those, and if you ever become not a threat, people are definitely going to walk into those, right?
Yeah.
So people doing stuff like that is relatively uncommon in these kind of games. Just
Yeah, like
deciding to.
Adana, right? Just
Yeah.
saying, hey, yeah, just convoy into Adana, just take the center. I don't want to be alive at the end. I
Yes.
don't care. Just don't let Ezio win.
Yeah.
Certainly uncommon.
So Mersin is doing more of what we would usually expect to see in a Chaos game, which is making a deal
fair,
to survive.
yeah, right. Cutting a deal to survive, and like it's going to be a good survival, right? Like I forget exactly how I capitalize on it, but getting Marison, and I don't remember if Marison explicitly agrees in chat to do that or not, but I kind of just bet that they do. I think, pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and meanwhile, fire's being orchestrated, right? They have their tacticians who just say, here's everything that's going to happen. I'm going to do whatever, right? Everyone's organized cohesively because one person is telling everyone what to do. I think that's Bari at this point.
Yes, Barry is definitely one
Yeah.
of the commanders.
I think the only one at this point. I think everyone else is, you just
I
fuck
think
off,
so.
you guys.
Naples was the commander in the south, so for these
Yeah.
units down here, but they were less important for your stuff, right?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Bari was only doing the stuff that was relevant to me, and Naples was doing stuff that didn't matter.
Yeah. So yes, fire is mass coordinating, and you're able to see that. Notably here, you can see Milan's wave in Milan, so they're agreeing to what fire has asked them to do, and I believe building an army in Venus instead of a fleet was also part of that
Yeah, get
agreement.
stuff convoyed. Because they're like, we need to get units convoyed in Stormwall in essence. That's a priority.
Yep. So yeah, Fire is doing their own thing. I'm up here trying to coordinate people to go south, although I'm supposed to be in charge of coordination, and people are coming to me with like order sets and saying, "Hey, meme, do you think this order set is good?" And I'm like, and for the most part, I was actually going like, I'll get to this in a bit because I was really busy at this point, and I was fully intending to, and then a lot of the time I wouldn't get back to them, but they just get because everyone on the map was working together, right? They just get Barry to look over it or something like that instead. So that worked.
Well, actually, sorry. No,
No?
CaptainMeme. They did not get other people to look over these order sets.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
People were sending stuff to you, expecting you to review them and get back to them and say they were good or not, and then you didn't. But they were like, me would have said if there was a problem.
Oh god, yeah. So I want to
Trust me, I noticed.
I want to note here that this was during quite a busy phase of my life, so I was mostly just motivation posting, right? I was going, yeah, I'm theoretically like rallying this alliance against you, and I think that was having a morale effect. But then people expected me to be more directly involved than I actually end up being. So
well, yeah, no, like kicking me out of Empire officially, right? Despite not killing you, by the way. I am going to note, this had nothing to do with attacking you, and I had groveled my way back into the Empire successfully by whatever at this point.
Yes.
And you kicked me out through no fault of killing you. And then you're like, all right, everyone, we're on anti-Ezio duty. That's the entire point of this alliance and every alliance on Earth. And it's like, all right, sure. I mean, look,
Yes.
again, I can't say I'm surprised, right? Like,
But
I
anyway,
knew
so
what I was signing up for.
the moral of the story in the north is basically please don't trust the one guy to look over all of your orders, especially when he's not been massively active that phase. Go and check with other people, right?
Good moral.
So yeah, my own contribution this phase was not actually all that high, and of course my direct contribution is just going to be not taking burgers, because if I'm playing purely for my own center count, it's probably best for me just to walk into these dots at this point. But that would absolutely make you win the game, right? There is no... If
If the
Chicken's
head of
fleece
the
comes
anti-Ezio alliance just goes and takes 2 dots from their neighbor who's like actually relevant in the anti-Ezio war, yeah,
yes.
that might undercut everything that everyone was going for. Yeah, right. You see, you see one person start stabbing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
but you
uh,
don't do that. You decide that's not it. That's not what you're going for.
yeah, so my own personal thing at the moment is just going to be keeping people motivated and not attacking people who need to be in this anti-Ezio coalition. And also, I want my personal goal of getting Feldkirch back at some point, but that's now been put a little bit more on the back burner, right? um, right, so, yeah, we were talking about... We diverted from like Mersin going into Izmir and stuff like that. Was there any
Yeah,
more tactics that you wanted to talk about in this region?
I
Or
think we should look at the tactics, and that'll be easier than trying to expect me to remember everything that was going on. There
okie
was
dokie.
there was a lot.
Yeah. So, you do get into Istanbul. You were correct that you backfill with chicken. And actually, Fork goes to Adana and they convoy
Into
Rostov
pheasant.
into Pheasant. So this is stuff that Ezio
Sure.
will have heard at the time and like seen discussed. This is just
Turns
misremembering,
out it's
right?
been
Thinking
it's
that
been
way.
months and months since I've looked at it, and yeah, this
Yeah, yeah.
also makes
Um,
sense.
and Omsk going to World's Tear is also a thing that happens.
Yep, yep, as expected. Everyone's doing all of the things, and look at all the supports into Carmelond and yada yada. Everything's sad.
But you get this fleet to go out of Feather Basin, which is pretty huge, right? You're in
Yes,
Mersin, you get bounced out of Quail, but you're now in Waterfowl as well, and you're mobilized into Feather Basin, and you have Stormwall and Storm Basin. Yeah, it's
suddenly I
pretty.
forgot the bounce out of essence.
Whereas, yeah, here.
Yeah,
So you do manage to bounce fire out of Essence as well. So that's all pretty good position-wise, right? There's more of an army density over here than you would have loved, I think.
yeah,
But it's still a pretty damn good position.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, here's where we have a big tactical shootout, basically. There's like a million different options that are happening
Do
with
you
all
want
of
me
this
to
stuff.
look at the clean map before you talk about the tactics for the next phase? Or is
Yeah,
this...
other people have an easier time looking at tactics when they see the clean map. That's true. Do that. I
Yes. You
Yeah.
can see this up here is just going to be a dot trade. We are killing Crossroads because Crossroads is on your side, right? So that is the only thing that's happening up here.
R.I.P. Crossroads. And then
Um,
you'll notice what's the thing that Donna puts over their unit?
Constantinople to the Rift.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what's happening with that.
No,
But
it just to
Adana
the rest I
is...
assume just means like chuck my corpse into the pit, make me a sacrifice.
Yeah, Adana is
Yeah.
piecing out of the game at this point. I remember we were asking them, like, do we need to get you a dot somewhere because your dot is being taken? They were just like, no, I'm done. And apparently I was wrong on Marash. Maybe they joined us. But yes, so, if we move ahead to the clean map here, Ezio can talk about his tactics.
Yeah. So, okay, quick thought calculation. First thing most important. I am +1 only if the phase were to end right now. I'm getting Istanbul and Mersin, but I'm losing Izmir. Okay, that ain't great. I need to get 4 dots total this phase, so I need to find a way to slip into net 3 dots this phase for it to win. So one thing, I'm currently losing Izmir. If I can capture Izmir instead, if I don't lose Izmir, that's 1 dot. I'm probably going to take Smyrna, so that's, well, I mean, I say probably, but you'll notice Izmir can move to Smyrna and bounce me out of it, because Marison is only a fleet. It can't support that attack. So that's really bad. Okay, if I get Smyrna, and then I've already calculated Mercer and Istanbul, but then if I don't lose Izmir, that's +2. Then if I like get into Pheasant or Partridge or something, that's 3. But I can't afford to lose anything else. And you'll notice with an army in Adana, an army in Pheasant, and 2 units in Handel Basin, things are tough because yeah, they all target Istanbul. They've got 4 strength, potentially touching Istanbul. They've got Konya as well to support Hold Pheasant potentially, and so like if they go for like a dirt simple tactic of Konya supports Pheasant and then Adana and Pheasant and both units in Handel Basin attack Istanbul like with them supporting each other, uh, kind of yikes. Um,
Yeah.
right? That's just like really bad for me. And then they'll have Anatolia cover Partridge, so I can't take Partridge. And then if they just have Grouse and Flightless Basin slap Quail with 2,
Wait,
I
Grouse and
can't win anymore,
yeah, I see.
right? If they just like do something dirt simple like this, it's Jover. Oh,
Mm.
and then the units in Carmelon need to hit Somniurfa as well. They need to put 2 on Somniurfa. Because the way that it works out, right, I've got 1 unit in Somniurfa contending with 2 against Carmelon. So I'm going to lose Somniurfa. I would need Ghost Basin to cover, to help support Somniurfa to not lose it. Okay? Then I only have 3 units in Esk, Istanbul, and Chicken to deal with the units from Handel Basin. Except Waterfowl can tap Pheasant. Okay, sure. So like I don't get Pheasant this phase, and I don't lose Istanbul, but I don't get anywhere. Right? We're not making progress here, and I need to try to win the game this phase, right? So then even if everything works out and I can get Izmir to go into Quail, and if they put 2 on Quail like I was talking about with Grouse and Flightless, I like can't get Izmir anywhere. Like this is just it doesn't work.
Hmm.
They don't do that. They make things way too complicated for, I think, no reason. And at the end of the day, they agree to some tactic that's a guess. They give me some guess. I forget the exact situation that they had set up. The point is, I get it right. I know what they're gonna do, and they like have it as one of these like theoretical. Oh, this person can choose whatever they want to do, and they should definitely flip a coin to make it an actual random decision. But you know, they never flip a coin. They always do the thing that they want to do, that they think is right. And I had a read on it, and I forget exactly why, and I do forget the exact tactics of the situation because it's been many months since I've looked at it. I think I end up taking Pheasant from Waterfowl, and I double support Istanbul. Maybe even triple support Istanbul. I think they throw everything at Istanbul, and I like have just Istanbul support into Pheasant. But Pheasant's the mover, so I take Pheasant. Um, actually, whatever. The point is, there's a tactical thing. I get. I am locked in on the tactics in this situation. The problem is, I still can't win the game this phase, even when I get the tactics right, and even around Quail, which I forget why they don't just support Flightless Basin into Quail here, but they don't. And so I just need to support Izmir into Quail, and I walk into Smyrna, and that's great. There's another huge guess, though. Since I'm not winning the game this phase, I'm like, I think it's very unlikely I win the game. There might have been some theoretical way, but I'm not going to win this game this phase, and I recognize that. And so, first of all, that's really bad for me because I was like, oh my god, I have this 2 year window that I have to win the game, um, and I'm not. Uh-oh. So I really do need to hold down the West for an extra year. And so like Storm Basin and Stormwall and Sanli Urfa and the rest of it, like how do I keep things together here? They have this one fleet in Syria, and I have my army in Stormwall, and they're doing this thing where they're going to support themselves into Syria, and then Syria is supposed to do whatever. Um, and like I have some options here. I can basically support Stormwall into Syria, or I can move Storm Base into the other one. Is kind of what it boils down to. Because like so here's where some of the levels get into it. So the default, assuming I don't know what's going on, if East Passage gets takes Syria, then Syria has a retreat. And if Syria has a retreat, then if I move to either storm basin, then I don't get in there, right? Then I move into one and they retreat to the other. So it doesn't stop it. I can't negate this attack. And so like you might think, oh well, that's just guaranteed to work, right? You kick Syria out and then that's done. But I can support Stormwall into Syria, and then using the beleaguered garrison rule, it's going to be 2 against 2 in Syria. So the fleet in Syria wouldn't have a retreat, and I essentially keep them out of Storm Basin for an extra phase. Knowing that, Syria might want to go to Storm Basin too, because I'm probably going to support myself from Stormwall into Syria because their tactics are such that they're just going to do the thing. And furthermore, if Storm Basin does anything else, like, for example, supporting Sanlifoura into Essence, then it's pretty bad if or the big one is really supporting Stormwall into Syria. Actually, for the other example, if I support Sanlifoura into Essence, then you would get the retreat into Storm Basin 2 still. Yep. So it wouldn't be that bad. Except with bounce Essence, and I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, point is, I expect Syria to go to Storm Basin 2, because I think it's so likely that I support Stormwall into Syria. And then we'll see how that guess goes. And then, yeah, Feather Basin's taking Smyrna, and we have a bunch of chaos to the north. What's terrifying, though, right, is, again, I'm not going to win the game this phase. Like, I don't think it's possible with the movesets that I mean, it's possible, right, if like, Varna and Chicken don't take Sanlifoura, because the big thing is I'm not going to support Sanlifoura. I recognize I'm going to have to sacrifice this, and I'm going to use Sanlifoura to bounce Essence, and I'm still going to get Pheasant out of the deal. And so, again, I looked at Sanlifoura, I recognized I probably wasn't going to hold it, so sack what you have to sack, make progress where you can, and I'm hopefully going to be able to push in, get into like Quail. I'm getting a bunch of these dots. I'm going to get Pheasant. I'm going to keep the pressure waterfowl. Like, it's brutal because so many armies are getting convoyed in, but I've done a good job keeping fire at bay. You'll notice in the south, there's this blue color that you haven't really seen in before. Yeah, because that army is by, I forget who, but it's by someone who wants to fight me.
It's by one of the, I think this might be Edinburgh. Yeah, they're in the Sweden Alliance, I think this is now called.
Sure.
Yeah, but basically everyone is coalitioned against you, so they've been convoyed over.
Yeah, they're convoyed in. Here. Oh, and this is fun. I was looking at this position, and they were talking about the whole move to Ravine. And I forget exactly what was going on with it, but they were trying to convince Izmir to, like, get supported into Mersin. And Izmir, like, didn't want to do that. But, like, I was gonna move... I'm moving Mersin to Ravine, I remember. I'm like... I say I remember. I'm, like, 90% that there was some nonsense going on with Ravine, where they were just supposed to, like, hold, and then I don't get a dot, and that'd be very funny.
Right. So, they think that you're going to walk into Ravine to bounce them, so they hold there, and then you walk out.
Well, I don't think they think that. I think they think I'm going to, like, mess with Izmir, the center, and, like, support Mersin up there, but they're like, oh, we'll do a thing, and if the unit in Mersin doesn't do that, then I'll move to Ravine to pop the unit in Mersin.
Right.
I think that's what they're thinking. I don't think the idea of me using Mersin, like, to play for position again this fall is something that's really occurring to them. They're like, Ezio needs dots, CC's dots, he's going to try to take dots.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm like, I can't win the game this phase. I need to play for a little bit longer. And it's tough because, like, the sheer weight of armies coming in from the entire rest of the map is such that if things go on much longer, I have no chance.
Yeah.
So, like, I was hoping to win the game this year, but we just saw, like, there's actually the way the tactics work out. I have too many fleets in positions where armies would have been too important, and it just is really tough to, like, actually get there, right? Like, that fleet-esque, that fleet having been in chicken rather than an army in last phase,
yep, exactly,
etc. Like, lots of things like this that just made the position, and then just numbers, right? Like, turns out there are a lot of enemy units to fight me, and, like, 11 units is a lot, but let's just count all of the hostile units, right? 2 in Triangle Basin, 1 in Grouse, 1 in Antalya, 1 in Mine Basin, you're up to 5, then 2 in Handle Basin, then 1 in Adana, then 1 in Pheasant, then 1 in Konya, then we've got armies convoyed in, we got Journey, we got Flightless Passage, East Passage, we got Syria, we've got 2 in Carmelon, we got 1 in World's Tear. Like, yeah, 11 units a lot, but at this point, there's, like, sort of 15 to 20-ish units, most of them aren't in great position yet, right? Like East Passage is kind of like half a unit against me because it's not threatening any dots directly. It's not trading with one of my units. It's like part of convoy change to get armies in there. So like my one unit in Somniphora is trading for like three of theirs, but like that's still three units that are tying down my one unit. Okay, and then they have a bunch of units like Handle Basin. That's just a real unit, right? Everything in Handle Basin and Thana and Pheasant are like really valuable, and so sheer weight, and it's not going to get much better this phase, this year. It still might, because I'm going +2 or 3 at the expense of the other people in this area. If I can force enough disbands locally, I've still got a shot, right? Like Pheasant, if they lose too many units, I'm still going to build a couple more, so I can potentially still swing the math in my favor. And I just need to eke out like a couple of dots in just the short term. Long term, this position is going to crumble, right? This isn't like standard diplomacy where you can make your solo push and you get to the stalemate line and you're inevitable. You can't be broken anymore. This is, again, I've got 11 units. The rest of the map has 134. They're
Yeah.
going to break me eventually because there's not a stalemate line that I can hold here with like 13 units. It's just a blitz for the win. Can I eke over the line? Like, how do the tactics go? How does this work out? And I think, sorry, you want to talk about your stuff, right?
Yeah,
Before
I
we
mean,
get
my
anything?
stuff isn't all that relevant here. The main thing is I'm being given another dot, right? Because Dornburn is getting the dot from Crossroads, and they're already on 3. So I asked, could I have the extra dot here to make sure I'm on 3 as well? And so locally, things are going really well for me, right? I get an
Yeah,
extra dot out of this whole thing. I'm not even having to be directly involved in what's going on over here. I'm just making sure that I'm taking out one of your allies and getting the benefits from it.
hell yeah.
Yeah, and so all of the tactics here are just going to be about making sure that that unit it isn't able to claim anything from any of us.
Yeah,
Um,
sweet. That's easy, right? You got 4 units messing around with one.
yep. It's
RIP Crossroads.
Yep, exactly. So do you want to move forward to your tactics here? Well, in fact,
Let's see the
I
spring.
guess I
Wait, let's see
guess
the
I'll see
fall.
the
Oh,
moves
yeah,
up
yeah.
here
Do your
because
stuff
they're
first.
not.
Yeah, make sure that it's clean.
Yeah, so you can see literally nothing happens. I think there was some talk about getting me to the front line. I had been, during my morale speeches, going like, I'd be willing to put my own armies in against Ezio if we need them. And this was something that was discussed. But of course, I
Mm-hmm.
back out again because there's a Crossroads unit here, so I can't
There's
be
a
the one on the
dot.
front line.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So then that's basically everything that happens here. I think Marash dies as well. Dornburn walks into their
Like
dot.
working with people to do stuff, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
nothing much happening here, to be honest. Uh, I mean, bits and pieces are happening around, but it's not the important part of this. The important part is here. Do you want to go talk to this? Go talk about this.
Yeah. So, first things first, let's talk about the Syria part, where the army in the unit in Turin successfully outguessed me. They moved to Storm Basin 1. If I had simply supported Stormwall into Syria, then would
Yep.
have didn't stop this Beleaguered Garrison would have worked, but I didn't. So yikes, there's a unit of Storm Basin. That ain't great. I lose San Lierfa.
Ouch.
Yep, that's
Yep.
fine. It's gonna happen sometimes. You're gonna lose some thoughts. And I guess I like I said, I just guessed right on this front. They did the thing where they supported everyone from Pheasant into Istanbul, and then actually I take Pheasant and I pop the army, and this is great, and I have a fleet in Pheasant South Coast, which is wonderful. It presses Partridge, and they're doing all this stuff. And Partridge actually cared about keeping units still, and so they didn't want to let the fleet in Anatolia take Partridge East Coast, which ended up being really good for me because Partridge just has units. The relevant Partridge units are already in supply centers, and even if Partridge goes down one more, they can she could just like disband Lighthouse and keep Handle Basin. And so the fleet in Anatolia not being in a useful center is actually pretty nice.
Hmm.
But now we go to my misorder,
Yeah.
which is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because as we've been talking about, I've been talking about Marison a whole lot recently, right? And Marison is the person, and Marison is pretty close to Quail, and I support Marison into Quail instead of supporting Izmir into Quail.
So this is something other
And
people have done a bit in the game. You can see on the turn that Styre dies, way earlier. They order Styre to the Rift instead of Cold to the Rift because they think, oh, well, my unit is the Styre one, right? And so they make that mistake and put the name of their like starting unit instead of the name of the place where it's at. And so that's what Ezio does here. He puts support Mersin to Quail instead of support Izmir to Quail because you're thinking about the person. It's such an
I'm
easy
thinking about
mistake to make.
the person has one dot, they're adjacent to each other. If you've been paying close attention to all of our discussion and analysis of this game, you'll assume we actually made that mistake a couple of times while talking about
Yes.
stuff.
So
Um,
notably, there was in the very last episode that we did. There was a point at which I was discussing the fact that I couldn't figure out who any of these people up here were, right? And Ezio was talking about units there and actually makes the exact mistake of calling Mersin Izmir, right? And I actually have a little bit of audio from after the recording of you being mad at yourself about that I'm gonna splice into this video here.
God, the fact that I got Izmir and Mersin mixed up in the review. Oh, yep,
uh, I'm sure they'll
yep.
forgive you for your sins.
I mean, it's not the sins. No, I mean that's the misorder that I made.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
God.
yeah. So I made this mistake, and it is so bad. To all of you guys looking at it, right? This looks like okay. It's like plus minus a dot, right? Because I'm not even the one taking Quail. I would be giving Quail to Ismir. Well, well. So, first of all, yes, it's minus one dot. That's brutal. Second of all, it covers Izmir, and it means that I can't build in Izmir anymore. And you're like, well, Marison has been working with you this whole time. Well, Marison doesn't need to work with me anymore. If you look at Quail, I'm taking Smyrna, but Quail has 2 units over on in Austria. You want to go up because you just like went through Austria really quickly. You want to look at what goes on with Quail over in Austria?
They get a unit blown up here. I don't actually know where their other unit is. It might have been blown up in the previous phase even, but that's a unit of theirs that's being blown up now. And so it's gonna be able to be rebuilt here.
Yeah,
Yep.
because they get to rebuild that unit in Quail as a hostile unit to me. And because that unit is now hostile, Mersin, the fleet in Izmir, doesn't need to work with me anymore because I can't threaten to kill them really.
Yep.
And even if I can, it doesn't matter. And so, given that I guessed correctly up in the north with Pheasant, if Izmir takes Quail, I can put down probably a fleet in Izmir. And I'm at I notably I would be at 14 supply centers after this phase, right? I would have gained Smyrna, Mersin, Istanbul, and Pheasant. I would have lost Sanliurfa, so okay. And then because of the misguess, I actually don't know if I win the game next year. Anyways, it's unclear to me if I win. I don't think I do, but it's still very close. It's like scrapping, fighting tooth and nail. It's so close. I could just see the 15th thought, please. But instead I misorder.
Yep.
And like I'm one dot lower. There's another hostile dot populating Quail instead of a friendly dot, and I don't have a friendly dot in Izmir anymore. Um, and that's kind of it. Like
Yeah. So,
I
like, notably, that's a 4 dot swing, like 4 dot difference, right? Basically,
yeah, 4 unit different.
you've turned two
Yeah.
units that would have been friendly to you into 2 units that are hostile to you as a result of this one missed support. It's so painful.
Yeah. And these are all like frontline, like these aren't like half C units, right? Like the units in Valencia and East Bastions or whatever. These are like all trading for dots. Like each one of these is in range of taking stuff because Bursa and Dia back here, whatever, are now like on potentials. If I can put down a fleet in Izmir and like take Flightless Basin, like or like kick one unit out, get something into Flightless Basin, that's a very big deal now. And if we could put Quail and Bursa and make these units in Triangle Basin defense stuff, like it's Or if they're defending against stuff in Bursa, it means that I could just like take Quail relatively smoothly. There's so much potential there. And after this, I can't win. I look at it and I first of all, I have a tendency to get tilted. I was very tilted.
Yep.
Second of all, even a rational calculation of the position, just looking at it after the fact, I don't think this is winning anymore. With me misguessing
shall I
in
move
Storm
to the clean map? Just
yeah,
so
yeah, clean
people
map
can
for the
see?
audience, so the audience can
Yeah.
see. Like again, I have my brain works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
So
So
actually, maybe builds whatever. Who cares? Like builds
We
will
can
also
go
reinforce the
first.
point once you see the army in Quail, and you're just like, wait a minute,
there's an army coming in
what?
Forest. There's units coming in through Camelot as well. Remember,
Yep,
there's a unit now in Fork surrounding Eski, right?
yep.
And of course,
There's
these two flipping is so
these two are
dangerous.
hostile. There's again that fleet and storm basin, right? Which like is a really big deal.
Yeah. So,
Um,
like, as you mentioned, this is not. If the solo limit was higher than 15 supply centers, this is not a winning position, even if you get into Izmir and have an allied unit in Quell, right? There's
yeah,
too much pressure coming in from everywhere, you can't get the extra dot. But if you were on 14 supply centers from this position, you have the Izmir unit, and the goal is 15 supply centers, you still have Sanliefer as a dot you can reasonably take. You can potentially put pressure on like centers over here,
stuff.
especially this particular area, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
quail dot, which would have been held by Izmir but wouldn't have been mine, that would be a natural target. And trying to retake Sanlierfa would be a very reasonable target to recapture. And like Partridge, the center is actually kind of weak. Like if I just have an extra unit to put down and fire back and move it into waterfowl, like take Quail to push into Grouse, right? These Bulgarias are natural targets.
yeah,
Without this, again, I can't make progress.
yeah. So
Um,
basically, you would be scrapping for that +1 turn, right? You wouldn't be
yeah,
going for anything long term. You'd just be going for, can I get the one extra dot that I need
yeah,
before it's too late?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But and just a tiny little swing, and this isn't a tiny little swing. This is a pretty big swing. Makes that completely impossible. Yeah. So I think I can understand why you got tilted at this point.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was pretty pissed at myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ezio recommends against misordering.
Yes. I think that's a good takeaway from this game. Don't misorder.
There's one more phase where I like really pitch Diak beer. To
Yeah.
basically be like, hey, would you rather have a GTFO winner or not? And if it's not me, it's nobody. So
Yeah, so you don't
and
give
then
up
their answer
completely,
is
right?
like,
You are
yeah, of
trying
course.
to get your way through negotiation because of course this is only stopping you from winning because there's a mega coalition against you. If that mega coalition wasn't there, then maybe there is a way for you to win. But it's you have to manage to break that apart, and that's a really tough thing to do when you're on 13 supply centers out of 15. That is the point where
Yeah.
people don't listen to you, right? Um, I do vaguely remember that Diyarbakir agreed with some of your points on that, but I don't know that they agreed with the whole thing. They were like, we might peace out with you or something similar. Am I even close on
Um,
that?
like Dia was on the fence about stuff and
Mhm.
like was considering, I think, just throwing. I don't think Dia was ever gonna get to a like it's gonna be peace. I think it was either like throw to you or not.
Right.
Like either I'm gonna let you win, and by you winning, a GTFO player becomes a winner. Whatever. I
Yep.
guess people did care about that. Or the spirit of GTFO, all stabbers must die. We're gonna kill a stabber.
Yep. And yeah, okay. So, do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that going into the next phase? Like,
Um, I think we can just see the moves. Again, worth noting. After the catastrophic tactics in the pheasant area with Istanbul and pheasant, with me like guessing correctly, um, and again, I want to point out that this was actually technically a guess, right? Like, Adana could have tapped this. Go back to the moves. Sorry, real quick,
Yep.
to show everyone. Because, like, the tactics they did weren't that terrible. Adana could have tapped Istanbul, and then I don't actually get stuff, and I still lose Sanli Fora, and, like... So this is a guess. It's just...
Mm-hmm.
It was a guess that I don't know. Sometimes you, like, have a soul read, and you, like, know what's going to happen, and then I knew it was going to happen.
Yep.
So... You didn't... Oh, yeah, you talked about you just, like, getting a dot for free easily. Then we have builds, and yeah, I think we can go see some moves where I'm trying to scramble to hold on to stuff, but, like, sheer weight of units.
Yeah. So... There's a lot going on in here, bloody hell. I know... I mean, I might cover my own stuff specifically, because there's not that much going on in this area at the moment, right? But I arranged to get traded Feldkirch for Wiener Neustadt, because I want Feldkirch back before the end of the game. And I am now fulfilling my promise of getting Convoy to the front line, mainly because I'm looking at that and going, I think Ezio might actually collapse it, so if I get to the front line and lead the troops or whatever, it is fully possible that I get a dot out of that. And my other option is waiting around to take Burgess when chicken is no longer necessary for this, right? Which would be a stab, so I would have to do it at a time where I couldn't get punished for it. But I only need one unit hanging around to do that. So I can get the other one over to the front line and try and get a dot off of this. But of course it bounces back because there's a bit of a traffic jam in this entire area, right? Which leads us down to what's going on with you. Do you want to talk about it? I think the answer to that might be no, but you should talk about it, right?
We're in a fight for our lives, and I recognize I'm not gonna win. So I go and say, look, guys, I'm not gonna win. I want to stop fire from getting anything, because fuck these guys. And I'm gonna fight to hold what I can and to slow you guys down so I don't just collapse immediately, but, like, really, I'm here to stop fire from rolling in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I retake Storm Basin and I pop their unit, and that's the main thing that I do. Was I saw they were doing this convoy to Stormwall, and they were guaranteeing that convoy, but I'm like, yeah, but I can retake Storm Basin now, and that's pretty big. Yeah. Because Storm Basin, it borders just 5 of my dots, right? Like, all of these Black Sea equivalents are so good. And so we did that, and, like, they're supporting everything. I don't really have the numbers to do all that much here, and I can take Storm Basin and, like, pop their fleet. And this gives me a pretty stable position-ish against the West. I say as, like, 3 more armies get brought in, but they don't actually have that good of a position on me, and, like, it's annoying, but, like, their fleet's also in Feather Basin because Parma is working with fire, and, like, they're going to do their thing. They're going to get some dots, and, like, now armies are in Bridge and Ravine because everything's dying.
Yep.
And then Quail's hostile, right? So Quail walks into Peacock, and I just, all right. Fine.
Yeah, also up here, we actually see a simple convoy paradox, which is the most basic type of convoy paradox, right? Do you want to talk about that at all?
You can talk about it. You like convoy paradoxes.
I do. Favorite. Convoy paradoxes is my thing. So in diplomacy, of course, supported... If your attack gets... if your support gets attacked, even, it is supposed to be cut. In this case, it's not getting cut because it's in a very specific circumstance where it's supporting a move against the convoying unit. Because if this move is successful, that means the convoy units get dislodged, so this move never made it there in the first place. So depending on what order you're resolving things in, right, either this support gets cut, and so this move doesn't succeed, and so this move got there in the first place, and in this case would have gotten into Sanliurfa, or this move is successful, cuts the convoy, and so that move doesn't get there. So you have to choose one of those 2 options. For a long time in the diplomacy rules, there was no explanation on how you were supposed to resolve this. People just did it based on what they thought would happen. Eventually, it was added to the rules that the unit supporting takes priority over the unit being convoyed. So in this case, this fleet gets in here and dislodges yours. So you don't get into Sanliurfa because of a correction that was made to the rules about 40 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Yep. But yeah, trying to get it via convoy was a smart way to do it. I think you're able to give a support hold to Ghost Basin at the same time. And of course, if they're trying to support Sanliurfa out into Ghost Basin, or if they're trying to double support units into Ghost Basin, it's quite important to hold that province, so it just allows you to do that. But in this case, it gets countered.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a unit coming into Essence as well, right? So this is really bad for you. Although Sanliurfa can't actually support a unit into Adapazari, which is why it's quite important that you've taken Ghost Basin here.
Yep, and disbanded the unit so it can't retreat anywhere. So
Yep.
yep, that part's good. But
the rest of it,
at some point, right, there's whatever 20 plus units pushing in on 13.
yes. So you kind of just have to hold out long enough to the point that you're no longer considered enough of a threat that these people all keep working together against you.
Captain Meme, you forget, they hate my guts.
That is a slight downside to this situation.
So GTFO, kill all stabbers, right? They've been flaming me for most of the game anyways. They're going to push for my death. And they're going to get dots out of the deal. Fire, they've been flaming me the entire game. They hate my guts. They're going to push for my death. And a couple of them are going to get some dots out of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is going to gain. And they hate me. Doesn't matter if I'm not a threat anymore. They're going to push to kill.
Yeah.
I just have to last until the end of the game. Because game ends 1915. What year is it, Captain Me?
It's 1912, so you only have to survive, 4 years, I guess, because it includes 1912,
Yeah.
right?
The rest of this year, and then the end of through 1915. So I have like 7 phases that I have to survive, and I've got 13 dots. So I have to lose just fewer than 2 dots per phase. That should be doable, right? It's harder than you might think, guys. Because it snowballs. As their position gets better, and as they take dots, and all of my dots are right next to each other, like it keeps getting worse. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk about these moves anymore, or shall we just advance?
No.
Okay. I do want to quickly say, I don't know if this has been here the whole time, or if I'm only just spotting it now, but whatever mod did this, I hate you. Now, you have empowered the Minecraft memers. Let us move on.
Is Chicken Jockey a Minecraft meme?
Oh my god, you're so disconnected from the Minecraft community. Yes,
Yeah.
it's from the Minecraft movie. It's one of the things Jack Black says. I haven't actually seen the Minecraft movie, but I've seen a lot of GIFs and videos that have discouraged me from seeing the Minecraft movie of very young people chucking popcorn at the screen when this happens. So, yeah. Anyway, if we move on to the next phase here, we will see that, for me, I am just getting this Wiener Neustadt trade with, Feldkirch for Wiener Neustadt, and actually St. Polten is still on 4 out of this. I'm still on 3, so he's completely happy to do that. We all in cold, so our alliance up here between myself, Dornburn, Chicken and Odysseus here, we all have pretty solid trust in each other at this point. Because we have been working together fairly solidly as Northern GTFO. A lot of us had been working together even before that point. Even when we were in other alliances to one another. Like, I helped Chicken in Zaburgas. Nava was working directly with Chicken for a while. I've obviously been working with Dornburn for ages, and Dornburn's been working with Nava for ages. So we all kind of have 100% trust in each other, and that's allowing us to do stuff like this trade. And just making sure that we defend our borders here and take out any units that might not be friendly to us. You can see that Australia has managed to reunite, as I think Bregenz actually joins Fire at this point as well. It might be a little bit earlier even. They managed to get voted into Fire too, so Leonding stops killing them and starts working with them, and at this point just works to eject all of the GTFO units out of this area, which works. And I'm trying to get to the front line still, and still getting bounced back here, so nothing really is happening for me on that front. So, yeah, as we move south into your sort of area, do you want to talk about what's going on here?
I mean, I'm just look, man. I'm fighting.
uh,
Numbers. No, really, we're just doing a numbers calculation thing. And it turns out that the enemy have too many numbers, and even though I can see what's happening, right, they're just saying we're going to take exclusively guaranteed moves everywhere. There are, in fact, armies everywhere. There are fleets on all of the borders. Everything is collapsing, um, and I am getting hit with depression.
Yeah, you can see, for example, here, supporting Ravine into Merson, there's nothing you can do about that because your Smyrna unit is a fleet. It can't really coordinate, right?
And even if it did, everything's getting tapped from everywhere else.
Yeah, so Izmir's getting
Right.
pulled into Smyrna, you have nothing that can prevent that. Here they're pushing into Marash with Stormwall supported, and they're tapping Gazien and they're tapping Storm Basin, so there's nothing you can do about that move either. So they are just taking the guaranteed options that are technically slow, but they're actually pretty
matter.
damn fast considering just because of the absolute volume of units they've got coming in, right? It's just a super painful situation, and you
Yeah, and
completely
again, it's because
lose
they're like
control.
nobody's fighting for them to be the one to get thoughts anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is doing anything like I want to get this center, I want to be the one to grow, I want safety, or like I want these positions. It's just like one person looking at the mass saying, "This is the only guaranteed way to take a center, and we're going to do the guaranteed ways to take centers." And
Yep.
like they're just dictating what's happening, and it's like, okay, sure, you guys are able to do that, and none of you guys care, so fine.
I do like that you are now sort of getting the other side of what it's like to be next to a Mega Alliance, right? Because that is what the Mega Alliances have been doing all game. Stuff like
I don't
fire.
think so. I've been jockeying for position the entire game.
Oh,
and
yeah,
my
yeah,
leader is,
absolutely.
like,
But
right-
being on the outside of that Mega Alliance, when they're all just pushing outwards, and you're, like, looking at that and going, please, someone do something that allows me to crack this a little bit. And then, in the end, the only way you can really get one over them is joining their alliance, and so they can't eat your dots, right? And now you're kind of seeing everyone working together in the same kind of way. Obviously, GTFO wasn't quite like that because you and Partridge were both making plays to gain stuff. But from an outside perspective, GTFO sort of was like that. If you looked at what was going on in, for example, Russia or in Australia, there wasn't really, or even in this area at some points of the game, right? There wasn't really anything you could do against the GTFO forces moving forward except join their alliance, and so they bypassed you.
Yeah, I mean, other people in GTFO did stupid things, I agree.
Yes. I think it was much more frustrating for the people who had to deal with this from Fire's perspective, because in Fire there wasn't a Constantinople or a Partridge jockeying for position like the way you were, that you could like point out and go, look, guys, you're making a mistake, someone is gonna come in and stab you. If you were looking at Fire and trying to say that, you didn't really have anyone to point to, because they actually were all working together.
And conversely, that if you were someone who was a neighbor of GTFO, you just had to make a deal with me or Partridge and you would have been fine. Right? Like, people who were near my wing of GTFO don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to join GTFO, right? Like, the way that Varna handled it was just, hey, I'm near you. Let's talk about Karmalond. And then eventually Varna decided to join GTFO because he felt it would be expedient. Fine. Sure. But there wasn't, like, the pressure. It was just, who's actually making it, who's important in this alliance, talk to them, and then, sure, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of happens with Fire as well, but we'll talk about that more towards the end of the game. There is one thing here that happens in your favour. Peacock moves back to Quail, right? I assume to cover against the Waterfowl attack.
Yeah, that was because they thought Waterfowl was going to take Quail, because they're like, who knows what Ezio is going to do with that, and I was like, I don't know.
So you come out one dot better off than you would otherwise, but it's still a pretty depressing situation to look at from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm losing, like, whatever, 4 dots, and, like, not getting progress, and it's getting popped, and... Yep.
Alright, shall we move on then?
Did we talk about you at all?
I talked a little bit about me, so the
Yeah,
I
there's nothing I'm
failed
talking
to-
about. Great, we can go next.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we can go forward to the builds here. There's not all that many that are directly relevant. But if we go forward to the spring phase, I guess we can look at Ezio's moves first. Because you can just again point out things are going quite badly, right?
Things are not going great. Yeah.
Yep. So you do manage to maintain control of Constantinople, cutting here. I think it again shows just how important the storm basin control was, because you are managing to put up a fight specifically around the Black Sea that you have control of, and really nowhere else, right? Everything else is falling, but because you have Black Sea control here, you can fight in this region. Yeah. Sadly,
Yeah.
you are going to lose Storm Basin 2 here. But,
Yep, but
yeah.
this turn does have a big thing, which is that Marison, the person now in Smyrna and Izmir, doesn't mess with me, and they actually help mess with fire. They like support themselves into Storm Basin 2 instead of tapping me in, or sorry, Feather Basin 2
Oh,
instead of
nice.
Feather
Okay.
Basin 1. Yeah, they're like, we hate fire too.
Yeah. So they are... and they have stabilized, so they can now kind of choose what they want to do. You're obviously no longer a solo threat, so stopping fire from advancing is a pretty reasonable thing for them to do.
Yep.
After what's happened.
And they're still going to get progress, right? And it's like, I was telling everyone else in GTFO, look, guys, it's fine if you help take me. Just make sure that you're the ones who actually get the dots, all right?
That's generally a very good way to destabilize any alliance that's coming for you in any diplomacy game. It's a good thing to
Absolutely.
do.
Right, who's actually going to grow from this, and figure out who isn't going to grow, and then pitch to them that they will make gains by working with you.
Yep. So...
And usually, again, I'm just going to say, usually in games like of Chaos, where you've got, let's say, 30 people who are all differently attacking you, only a few of them are actually going to grow. So usually, you can take a big punch to the face and then start selling out to individual people to make things happen.
Yeah.
Not quite the case this time. Again, they were at a point where they're having one person post all of the order messages, and they're just asking people to not even like copy paste the messages, just link the messages in their void, because they can't even be bothered to copy paste.
Yeah, that was... I think that was also a questionable thing to allow in the first place. And honestly, I think fewer people did it than they requested do it.
Yeah, they requested that everyone did it, and then they tried to abuse the fact that the GMs made a ruling in a private thing to be like, if the orders gets changed after someone links it, then the orders become all holds that like the GM just posted in chat to someone, and then they're like, oh, so I can do this, so I can make Ezio think that someone's going to do this thing, and I'm going to edit the move at the last minute to like change. I forget which phase this comes up, but I think it's a little later. But they're like clearly trying to abuse this thing that the GMs allowed, which is questionable to allow in the first place, to use it in a way that they didn't expect to make a move get changed in public press.
I do remember this. I don't know if we're going to spot the exact move on the map, because obviously it was more of a thing in the press than it was on the map. But it was Barry who was coordinating moves for fire, right? At some point asked that, okay, all the fire players who are under my control, essentially, when you're entering your orders, just link to my order message and tell the GMs carry out whatever order is there. Then he would write the orders down, and then he went back and edited it later in the phase to change what that order was to try and trick the opponent into doing something that countered what the original order was. Right?
No. So yes, but so it was that the GMs did rule that if Barry edited the message, it wouldn't be moves; it would just be all hold.
Okay, right.
It wouldn't be the new moves. But it was still the idea that someone would see the message in public press, make a move to counter it, and then someone else would be able to retroactively change the moves that like the other person had done.
Yes, and so that player would hold instead of making the move, and so you'd try and counter the move and end up making the mistake of, not bouncing with the move because that unit is now holding. Anyway, it was like very controversial, and it's not very relevant to what we were talking about, but it does come up.
Well, yeah, in terms of the like, hey, one person is just doing all of the fighting, and everyone else like doesn't give a shit anymore about trying to win the game.
Yes, yeah.
or get themselves in a good position.
So, important to note, like, these moves that it looks like someone's stabbing, for example, almost all of the time around fire, they're not someone stabbing, they're all coordinated. Everything
Oh, at
is,
this
like,
point, it's all
agreed.
coordination. At this point, it's all
Yes.
explicit. Yeah, there's
Um,
nothing anyone does anything that's even a little bit out of line.
Yes, and I should say at this point, I'm still of the same kind of opinion that Ezio is and that I'm expressing in this commentary, that I really don't like the fact that no one in Fire was playing for the win. I feel like it made the game less interesting, right? Although, actually, it's kind of interesting to see what happens as a result of it in the game, but it made the gameplay itself a bit less interesting. But I am very much not voicing these things. And because Fire is this gigantic mega alliance, and I have on my kind of bucket list for this game that I want to get to Squares, which is now looking like not as much of a possibility, but if I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna need Fire's help. So I'm kind of sucking up to Fire and going, oh, I've seen the error in my ways. I think your mega alliance is amazing. The fact that if your Mega Alliance hadn't stuck together, we would have just seen an Ezio solo, right? Your Mega Alliance saved the game, which is kind of true. I mean, not just kind of, it is true. Right?
I disagree. You can have people who are big also work together to fight solos. It doesn't have to be a mega alliance.
Yeah,
it could just be someone be strong and be like, oh, Ezio's going to win. I'm going to go stop fighting these other people to go stop Ezio from winning.
I think the fact that all of these players trusted each other made it much easier to coordinate against you, and given how close you got, that was pretty damn important, right?
Sure.
But yeah, anyway, I was very much bigging this up and trying to make friends with Fire as much as possible by praising their actions, right? Because I felt like I would need their help in order to get to my objective, which is Squares at the end of the game. Yeah. So, things that happen up in the north, assuming you're done with talking about stuff here, or...
Yeah, I mean, I'm bad and dying, and
okay.
that's all there is to it.
Yeah, we just agree to bounce over Burgos for the moment, so this is all an agreed move. I was quite nervous that Omsk was going to walk into Crescent, because I think at this point we all saw, yeah, Ezio is definitely not a solo threat anymore. Chicken is definitely going to get stabbed at some point, right? That's... Like, their units are now in main Spiral and Chicken, although they get into Chicken, so they actually get a build back at home here. But everyone is kind of aware that a stab is coming, and I was thinking Omsk may well be the person who takes the first move here and just grabs a dot. But I think they decided not to because they were going to get the Esky dot down here. Actually, it looks like they weren't supposed to get the Esky dot. Maybe they were supposed to support up this way and let that dot go to Samson. But I do remember at this point, Omsk is... Like, throughout the whole game, Omsk has seemed like a very self-interested player, and they have very much taken advantage of the fact that there's this coalition against you to try and get as many dots out of it for themselves as possible. Which isn't something that everyone is doing, right? Yeah, but they don't go for Crescent, they go for Esky instead, so nothing really happens over here. I think Australia, honestly, it's impossible to tell what's happening in Australia any of the time, but I think this might have been Breggans stabbing Leonding at the same time as Leonding stabbed Breggans. I vaguely recall that happens at some point, and I think it's this phase. And up here, in this Austria, this is something that's been happening for a little bit, and I completely, forgot to mention it before, but there's this thing called the cage match that was going on, and they got paused, I think, twice. First because Klagenfurt stabbed everyone, and they had to react to that, and then second because you stabbed everyone, and people had to react to that. But these players are all part of Fire, but they've decided, they've had an official Fire vote and all this, that they're allowed to do something interesting in the endgame, so they just declare war on each other. So Brazov and Venice are fighting Craiova here, even though they're all in the same alliance. It's a little ridiculous. Yeah. So that's about it for up here. I think we're going to go ahead and move to the fall then. And so, yeah, we can see things still not going very well for you, right? You end up losing Constantinople. You do manage to disband another unit in Storm Basin. Bloody hell. I assume that was purposeful, right? That was like...
Oh yeah, no, everything is we're like playing whatever vacuum cleaner with the whole thing.
Mhm.
And this was the phase that they wanted to get the army, the fleet in Syria to hold instead of move to Storm Basin 1 because Marash was trying to bounce that while still stay in Marash. But if Syria had held, then I would have walked into Marash and then Stormo would have walked in.
Yep.
But Milan actually was just copy pasting the orders, so did what was stated and not had the link thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, so none of it worked anyway, but it did cause a bit of controversy afterwards. The way they tried to attempt it. It is interesting to me that Mersan, after having taken Feather Basin 2, helps Parma into Ankara. I assume they had some kind of negotiation there to make up for things.
Yeah, after I was like, make sure you guys get all the dots. Fire was like, well, we'll give you guys some of the dots, and then they were like, well, that's good enough for us, and so they agreed to like get Gaz, and I forget which dots exactly. Fire agreed to give to KFC, but there was some.
I remember there was like a big negotiation around what Cold would get as well, specifically whether like Chicken and Varna would be able to get. This might be a bit later, but Fire back was one of the things, whether they were going to get Fire back or whether Fire was going to get Fire back. It is just bleak to think about, right? The fact that all of this negotiation over what dots were being taken by who were happening in plain sight in front of you, and there was really nothing you could do about it.
Right. That's what happens when you lose, right? If you're weak, you can't do anything, and so don't be weak.
Yep. But yeah, so something important happens for me this phase, which is that I get convoyed into Camelot. So at this point, I have basically gone to Fire and said, hey, Fire, my objective in this game is to take Squaris by the end of it now. I want that to happen. I've only got, 5 phases left? Oops. So not fall 1913, then spring, then fall, then spring, then fall, right? So I do not have very much time to get there. That's like one move and then a convoy over here, and then there I'll get there one phase before the end of the game. So I really want to make this happen. Is there anything we can agree to make this happen? And there was a whole lot of negotiation around this. Varna really wanted me to be able to do that, right? And because I'm in their alliance, they're very supportive of that and trying to get it to happen. And so it actually gets tied into these Fireback negotiations. And I don't remember exactly what happens, but I feel like at some point, like Fire agrees to... We agree that Fire gets Fireback instead or something in return for me getting into Squares. And then they do this Fire thing of like, we've already agreed to this, but now that I know what you really want, I'm actually going to modify the deal a little bit and get more out of it, right? Which really annoyed me about Fire, and it was the first time it really directly affected me. But they wanted to get Timisoara for one of their members, and so they put that as a condition as well, that I would have to give up that dot. And so I kind of countered that by saying, okay, but I need to then get a dot immediately from France, and then we'll trade it as I go along. And that caused a whole lot of discussion. There was just so much going on around this, right? But eventually, I think Varna actually manages to negotiate Fireback back to them because I agree to give up Timisoara, and then we both raise enough of a fuss about Fire pushing for this, in addition to what they'd already got. And a lot of the French members who are currently in Fire, Reims notably is not in Fire, which is why they're getting killed, but basically all the rest of France is in Fire, really wanted this Squares thing to happen as well, and so they were constantly voting in my favor on all the fire proposals, which helped a ton.
Yeah,
and so
part of
that
this
kind
is
of
ridiculous, right? Because like the whole
yeah.
squares thing shouldn't involve the rest of Fire, right?
Yes.
It should involve the members in France, but because Fire was their nonsense, right? Like you have people who it doesn't affect just sitting there raising a shitstorm, and like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Notably, it is just funny that in order to get squares, I have to give up Timisoara to a player who... It's this player who is a Fire member, and I have no idea who they are. And, like, France has no idea who they are either. They come from somewhere in Italy.
I'm just gonna point out, I don't think you had to give up the dot. Is just what I'm gonna say. I suspect you could have just gone to these other people and just been like, "Yo, I'm just gonna do this," and then they would have let it happen.
Okay, so notably, some of the fleets I have to get convoyed through are actually original Fire members. You can see that this one, I think, belongs to an original Fire member, and this one is Roman. So I do at least have to keep them happy until I get a unit over there. Right, but...
Sure, if they're the ones convoying, you have to make them happy.
Yes. But you can kind of see that this game is reaching the end state by the fact I'm so focused on this goal that wouldn't really matter in a standard game at all, right? It's just symbolic. So we will go ahead and move ahead. Unless
like the entire world working together to stop the one solo threat really triggered endgame.
Yes.
Where people were like, oh, actually, there's not that much time left in the game. We need to devote so much time to stopping Ezio. No one else is going to win this game, really. Like, who else even could? Like, Clag maybe could. But people who are at, like, 6 or 7 dots now maybe have a chance. But, hey, look, these big people are fighting each other. So, right, again, it felt like no one was going to win. And so everyone's like, all right, let's go pursue our own bullshit.
Yeah, actually, the board leader right now is Denmark, who we haven't really talked about at all. But they've done a really good job of consolidating. And you can see they've been stabbing people who've been working with them, and they even get more dots on this turn, right? Belgium and Wait, which kind of puts them within solo range. People were worried about them at this point. They're now on 11 centers. But the people around them are going to try and stop them from getting any more at this stage. They're definitely one of the contenders for the board top at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, given that they are currently the board leader right now, it would make sense that they're in contention to still be the leader in like 2 years.
Absolutely. Right, so if we move ahead to the... so you can see that Chicken manages to put down an army in Crescent at this point. I feel like there's no builds in my area. Yeah, there's nothing. And Fireback comes off the board for you, right? Notably, Partridge having to blow something up. I don't know what they lost, but it's shown your solo attempt is and the fact that they didn't go for a solo attempt at the same time has kind of screwed over any chances they've got of coming out of this on top.
Yeah, I mean, I played it. The timing was such that no one else in GTFO was going to win the game except for me.
Yes. All right. So let's move ahead to the spring moves here. And you can see I actually get the convoy off into Copper. So I do make this deal with Fire, and you can see Fire walks into Timisoara now. And they now have that dot. That is what it is. But I am now on my way over here, and I have negotiated that I get Reims on the next turn. In exchange for them taking Timisoara right now, right? So that I don't go down a unit.
Sure.
Yes. In my homeland, I can't remember whether this was... I think this specific move wasn't a stab into Wiener Neustadt. This was part of an arranged, center trade. Because I wanted to keep dots in this area, and I think Varna wanted to take Kragujevac or something like that. I don't remember.
Sure.
But going into the next phase, this area is going to get kind of interesting. And you can see Dornburn is walking all the units back this way. They wanted to have Rift control as a final objective for them in the game, in the same way that I was going to have Square's control or going to try for it. And Fire is still attacking you.
Yeah, and at this point, right, it's not even explicitly me, right? There's just other dots to contest in the area. They've already got units here. There's potential to gain, so let's keep throwing units around.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And attacking me, yes.
Yeah, and there's not really anything you can do about it. You still keep them out of Storm Basin. After all of this, you're still in control of that Black Sea, which is absolutely incredible to me.
It's a sign of how defensive the position was, right? Storm Basin was huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, but you do get knocked out of Gaziantep at the same time. You actually get a retreat into Ankara.
Yeah, who cares, right? They got too many units, doesn't matter.
Yes, things are not going great for you here. I don't know what's going on with that. There's a lot of meme stuff happening on this map. So, shall we move ahead to the next phase then?
Sure.
Okay.
Year and a half left.
Yeah. So you actually do survive this phase, right? You, again, because of your control of Storm Basin, you hit Essence.
Yep.
And managed to stop them taking out a Pizarri. So you are now down to 1 supply center?
1 dot, baby.
Oof. Going into the final year. So you just gotta convince people not to take that dot, right?
It's an Ankara equivalent, which is tough ones to capture.
Yes, especially
There's a fleet
since...
and the Smyrna equivalent, yep.
Yeah, that fleet can't help against it. So, And this unit is a fire unit, this unit is a cold unit, right? They are not...
Although here's where it's important to mention, that's not... I don't think of that as a fire unit. That's a Milan unit.
Yes.
Actually, that's a Varna unit.
Milan is more pro themselves than most of the rest of fire is, right?
Yep.
We saw with the stab as well. So, especially going into the final year, they might not be willing to help other people get the dots that maybe they could go for.
Yep. And also, like, again, I had a solid relationship with both of these players. So at this point, maybe I can survive. But maybe they'll say, hey, we can actually work this out and we'll get a dot out of the deal.
Yes.
And look, can't grudge people for getting a dot.
Okay, so I get into Reims at this point, right, as well. And I, at this point, make my stab on Dornbirn. So
who could have seen this?
I mean, I felt so bad about this. I very nearly decided not to go with this and just go, oh, my end game is just going to be about getting Squares, and that's going to be what I talk about in the video. But again, also with regard to what's happening on other parts of the map and people not playing for the win, I was kind of thinking, well, that doesn't set a great example to people if I don't do stuff myself. It does kind of explain why people are willing to play like this, right? Because sometimes it feels nice to run the game with your friends, like with friends you make in the game, and just stick with them throughout. And Dornbirn was one of those people. He was very, very nice to play with and just awesome to talk to all the time, and I had a great time working with him. But at this point, I'm like, I want the dots. I think I want to go for dots. So that's what I'm gonna do. And right now, what are they gonna do to stop me? Like, he's moving units through the rift. I kind of thought he would get called out as well, which would have made this a bit better for me. But
Doesn't matter, right? You're gonna build in all of your slots, right?
I'm gonna get 2 builds here. Timmy Swore is a fleet, so can't assist against me. Burgess is a fleet, so is only adjacent to Kragujevac, which I've been informed I'm pronouncing incorrectly, but I've forgotten the correct pronunciation, so I'm just gonna leave that. So, yeah, I can very easily get to 4 here, and there's no repercussions as far as I can see. The only thing I was worried about was whether...
5, right?
Yes, actually. Sorry, I do get to 5, because I get Reims as well. The only thing I was worried about was whether Fire would rescind this deal because of what I'd done up here. But I went to Fire and talked to them and said, hey, I've stabbed cold. I'm working against my alliance in this region, but I'm not going to take your dot in Timisoara. That one is, off limits for me because it is part of this deal and I view getting squares as super important. So can we please keep the deal? And they supported that, so I got the thumbs up on still going to Squares. If I hadn't got the thumbs up on going to Squares still, I was gonna try and work with individual French players and see if they would be willing to break apart from Fire, because ultimately going into the final year, Fire doesn't have that much control over what these surviving French players do. The actual French players in France right now are Bordeaux, who is here, Nimes, who is here, and I think this is Lille, who now owns this area. And so you can see there are some Italian units in Fire, but then in France even, but there's a pretty minimal amount of them, especially armies. So yeah, and unfortunately Reims dies. Reims was Bumble, by the way, who played a huge part in the last game and played a big part in France in this game, but
Bumble was dead in 01.
he still played a huge part. He founded Bumbleism, the religion, right? Or at least it founded around him.
Sure.
But he survived a really long time in this game. He made France a very fun place to watch, or at least to see in the press threads. But he wasn't really directly relevant to either of us. So he didn't really get any discussion at all in this, right? But yeah, he dies in this year. And yeah, I was looking to work with the French players and try and get them to see the significance of me getting to Squares. And it ends up not being necessary, at least for now, because Fire is happy with me. So, yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about on this phase?
No, let's go, please.
Okay.
My misery.
There is actually one other thing that's important, which is that Omsk is making a run for as many dots as they can. You can see they take Volgograd off of Rostov, who has been their ally for a very long time before this. And they take Rostov off of whoever the pink player is who was also working with them. I think it was another Russian. So they are making a run for dots right now. Denmark is making a run for dots right now, although they're kind of stalled. They don't manage to get anything new here. They just managed to keep West Munich. So they're going to stay at board top. And you can see a mass movement up this way from Klagenfurt, which isn't really going to manage to get any dots, but was trying to stop Dornbirn from getting through, I think.
Yep, there's only one more year, so use your units to keep what you can, get what you can, right? It's a mad dash. It normally is a mad dash for dots, just everyone tries to grow as much as they can at the end of the game.
Yep.
But have you seen that most places?
Okay, so if we go through to builds, I of course build double armies here to try and claim as much as I can get. Leonding has managed to consolidate most of this area, but Bregenz has survived by slipping into Brasov in the north. And these two were that same Fire player who I don't remember the name of. I'm sorry to that Fire player, but they were being negotiated for by the Fire players back here, really. And you actually take off out of Pizarri, so you are prioritizing Storm Basin control to the very end, right?
Storm Basin. It borders both dots. I've talked about this at length. If you're trying to defend a dot, you usually want to be next to the dot, not in it.
Yes. And here, I mean, you can go for any number of dots if that one looks like it's gonna be taken, right? Or you can try for other dots.
Yeah, definitely expect there to be open dots in this area, yep. Yeah,
Alright. Okay, so if we go into the spring, I don't know if you want to talk about what's going on here, or your attempted negotiations here?
I don't think I say anything this spring.
Oh, really?
I think I recognize all of my hopes and dreams are going to be about the fall.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay in Storm Basin, see what happens, and maybe someone will take pity on the once mighty Ezio.
Okay, so you see Milan gets supported into your dot here, so it's going to be a bit of work negotiation-wise for you to survive, although I guess it would have been anyway. But yes, so Fire all still moving together, more or less. I think Milan might be going for dots. I don't know. But we'll see on the next phase. Notably, like, Rostov is still making a mad dash for dots here. They're trying to get into position to take Ufa, and to take anything they can in northern Russia. And Denmark is still trying to defend their lands, but they're getting beaten back a little bit. They get kicked out of North Sea and kicked out of Waite by the coalition around them. Klagenfurt still holding pretty much exactly the dots he was holding before. It has just been sitting here this whole time without really any means of expansion, right? But also has managed to keep the coalition off his back, or any potential coalition off his back.
Yeah, despite going up to this huge stab after making a massive, going up to like the big main solo threat, got a bit of a coalition, but that coalition disintegrated. They did a great job at like staying as a big relevant player who can potentially make a play. Like if things changed dramatically, he could have still won, which is just really impressive, right? Unlike me, went big, exploded, and then died.
Yep.
He was further from winning, but was still pretty close and still has a chance to win, which is just very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I make an interesting decision over here, which is probably very predictable if people know me, right?
What? A surprising decision?
But the important thing is, I haven't taken Squaris yet, right? So me kicking fire out of this dot right now was a surprise to people. There were a lot of people who said after I kicked this out, oh, I was expecting you to do that in full. And I was like, well, yeah, I know you were. That's why I did it in spring. Like, if I do it in full, you're just gonna say, hey, Ufa, can I get a support hold on that? Or like, hey, Nava, can you tap... oh my god, I made that mistake. Hey, Varna, can you tap Kragujevac for me and make sure that he doesn't get that? Well, the tap would be countered by me, but at least this gets me into position to potentially take Burgess on the next phase, right? It also makes sure that if they do manage to get that support from Inward Ocean, I'm already in there, so that doesn't help them in any way. So I did it a phase earlier than people were expecting. That's the important thing for me here.
CaptainMeme also dots people and breaks his deals, guys. He's not some holy whatever.
Look,
ESA.
Yeah, I do it right at the end. To be fair, you also did it right at the end, right? So... No, oh god, when we get to World of Chaos, people are going to see a lot more of this.
You guys should stay tuned, although that's going to be a long time coming, everybody.
Yeah. Alright, so yes, I take Timisoara. The immediate response from Fire is, alright, we're revoking the deal, you don't get Squaris anymore. My response to this was to go, well, first, it was to be... Sometimes it's better for you to, when you're in that kind of situation where someone is posting like messages that you want to respond to in a somewhat inflammatory manner, you should take a step back from your keyboard and not respond for a bit. Unfortunately, I did not do that. I started talking about how, you know, I'm happy to stab fire at the end of the game because you guys have all been hugboxing for this entire game, right? And not doing anything at all. And like, I'm gonna finish the game ahead of every single one of you. Which was not a smart thing to say.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, one of you members, can you help me, let me into Squaris, please?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, at the same time, I kind of realized immediately after I said this, oh my god, that was a really stupid thing to say, right? Because I had been bottling up this frustration about Fire and the way they were playing for a very long time. I obviously wasn't immediately next to them, so it wasn't as much frustration as maybe some of the other players around them had, but I was really annoyed to see that none of them were even really trying, right? They were just at the end, and a lot of them were happy saying, look how much of the map is controlled by fire, we're going to be painting over 50% of it, which means we win. I'm like,
we're the best alliance in the game, we're so much better than all of you.
That doesn't mean you win at all. That just means you manage to stick as a group and end on 3 supply centers.
Or less.
And yeah, I have to say here that I am very aware that people make their own objectives in diplomacy, and hey, I'm doing exactly the same thing, so I'm being kind of hypocritical here. But I feel like what I was doing wasn't making the game unfun for a whole bunch of people around them, right?
But like,
Just
I don't think the argument should be that. Look, respectfully, the point of diplomacy is not to make the people that you are playing with have a good time.
yeah, that's true.
Right? Saying that, oh, their neighbors had a bad time is not an argument against the alliance.
I mean, it also kind of is though, right? Because it's such an oppressive strategy. It sort of squeezes any of the fun that anyone could have out of the game away from, like, and that's not entirely true because plenty of interesting stuff happened in this game still.
Yeah.
But
and like, I was one of their neighbors, right? Who was very close to them, and yet had a very interesting and exciting game despite their like ostensibly obnoxious playstyle, right? It's obnoxious because they weren't ever going to win, right? This holier than thou philosophy that they kept proposing, whilst simultaneously not gonna win the game, that part's the obnoxious part, right? If they were just like, yeah, we're playing to play, and like, Fire isn't the best alliance on the board because none of us can win. We just have a lot of members. Go us, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I also don't want to criticize Fire too much for this because honestly, they did an incredible job at doing what they were trying to do. Right? They achieved this. They actually did paint, I think, about 50% of the map Fire's color. And that was what they were trying to do, so they did a
Fire's
fantastic
color,
job.
there's no one fire color. Right? Looking at this map, it is unclear who is Fire.
Yes, you have to look at an alliance map for that.
Yeah, you have to find some different map. That's for the map painting. That's cheating. If I want to have a different map, I can use a different map to make all my color if I wanted to.
Yeah, you just have to bribe the map maker. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, but they did a really good job in achieving what they wanted to achieve. And in the moment, I was a lot more emotional because I'm kind of... I mean, diplomacy is a game that makes you emotional when you're talking for that long about something every day. Like, you get very, very invested in it, right?
Yeah.
And now that it's been a while, I can take a step back and go, I definitely overreacted to that kind of thing. But...
I reacted perfectly rationally to Fire at every point in the game.
But yeah, in the moment, I said some inadvisable things that I really should have kept for the commentary.
It is difficult to diss someone and then immediately go and ask them to help you. That's a difficult thing to do in general.
So, notably, at this point, the main people I was arguing with were Barry, which, like, Barry was one of the people who was trying to insist that I, not get Squaris as a result of this, and the other person is whoever this person is in Titanium, who I forget.
Oh, wait, but they're adjacent to Squaris.
They are.
Oh, you're screwed.
That is a bit of a problem,
What do you mean? You were doomed from the start. They were always going to bounce you out at the end.
I can't remember who this was, but it was one of the original Italian players who has now migrated up here with their armies. But because of the way this works, so this unit here, I believe, is Padua, right? Who made his endgame objective being circumnavigating the globe top to bottom. And that unit, that army, was one that spawned in Padua at the start of the game, has gone all the way through Austria, and like walked down through here, gotten convoyed across to France, and now gets convoyed back to Italy, which is pretty damn impressive. But because he's doing this, it means that now there is only one enemy unit adjacent to Reims. So if I just give up on the Squaris idea, I can cover Reims instead. Which the whole deal with Fire was that I lose Reims when I take Squaris, so I would end up, I would end up on the same dot count. I would just be in Squaris. Now, if I just abandon that idea, I can cover Reims instead and end on the same supply center count. that I would otherwise. So it's not actually that big of a deal for me unless I really care about the whole squares thing, which I do, but at the same time I'm like, oh, fuck, I just sort of ruined that by saying what I said over there, so I guess I kind of have to give up on the whole squares thing now, because I'm not going to be able to get in here. If we go to the clean map here, I assume you're alright for me to progress to the clean map?
Sure.
Yep. There are some French players here, so notably Bordeaux is here. They're not going to be incredibly relevant, although they were very relevant in getting the stuff pushed through the bureaucracy in the first place for me to get over here via convoy and then into Squares. But the relevant players are Lil, who is here, who is a former emperor herself, and Nimes, who is a Squaris purist, who was not happy with the whole deal that Fire had made with me initially that I get into Squaris, because he believed I was a false prophet, right? That I had taken the throne from France, and that actually Squaris is coming back. Because if you remember from the very first episode that we did, when Squaris got eliminated, they entered a move to Squaris 1916, and we are very nearly there. So he was saying we should leave Squaris empty and let the real emperor come back, right? Which is all ridiculous. But at this point, these Italian fire members, so this one specifically, and then this one is just doing what he's told by the other ones, they go, okay, we're just going to push into Squaris and make sure that Meme can't take it. And Nimes is like unhappy with that idea, so will not support them in. He is going to double support the real Squaris back to Squaris. So effectively his units are piecing out of this whole thing. So all I need to do is get Lil to work with me, and then I get Squaris, right?
Sure.
But if Lil says that, then Lil gets walked in on their remaining dots, and so they're kind of screwed. So instead I just go, okay, you know what? I'm not French. I've been holding this Emperor title for the longest time, and yes, my objective has been to get to Squaris. I very nearly achieved that, but now that I'm on the precipice, I realise that it was never supposed to be me. I was supposed to hand the crown back to the French. So I go ahead and say, Lil, you were the emperor before me, or the emperor 2 before me. I think Craiova was the emperor before me, but I'm giving you the empire title back. You can take Squaris. I'm going back to Reims. I sort of give myself a narrative way out of the situation.
Sure. Tell me you go for the other dot, the Padua dot.
Which one is the Padua dot here?
None.
So, this one. I think they'd agreed to cover that. And like,
very funny if they didn't.
At that point, I was resolved to going back to Reims, but then this whole so the Italian players still wanted to do this, right? And I can't remember why it was, but Lil was only going in with 1 unit or something. So they needed my support on that. And at the last moment, I just decided, oh, you know what? Like, this unit shouldn't really be here anyway. It's only here because of the narrative reasons, so I'll give you the support in. Just please don't go to Reims. So they could have stabbed me for Reims if they wanted to. But if we move to the last phase, they actually don't. Oh, I remember now. The Lil wanted... if the mods were going to let the real Squaris back, Lil wanted the real Squaris to be able to get into Squaris with 3 supports. So we needed 2 supports against the Italians on the real Lil's move in case that... Oh, sorry, 1 support on the real Lil's move in case that was necessary. But just to keep the Italians out. And in case the mods didn't let the real Squaris come back. But if the real Squaris had come back, they'd have 3 square supports, as you can see here. And so would get in ahead of either of us. It was utterly stupid. Basically, this whole thing I've been talking about towards the end of the game was completely meaningless in the grand scheme of things.
Yep, well, I sure am glad we spent an extra, let's say, 20 minutes talking about this whole Squares storyline. That ended up being you take Reims and don't die.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a little swathe of land going in here, right? I've got the extra dot here.
Look at all of the not supply centers you've colored in. Pathetic.
But annoyingly, I actually lose a dot at home on this phase. Because I need to cover against... they were asking Ufa for help into Timisoara, so I needed to cover against that, right, with the support hold. Kragujevac was always being cut by Burgess, so I couldn't use that, so I had a 50-50 guess.
Support Timisoara into Burgess?
There was a reason I don't recall.
Oh, well.
So if I'd have done that, yes, I would have got Burgess, and then I would have been bounced out of Timisoara, right? This unit was always coming here. Oh, God, I missed a hole. Okay, I'm going to do this very, very quickly, because it's not relevant again. But when I had the argument with Fire, I basically tried to convince everyone in Austria to get rid of any Italians who were left, which was basically just this centre here, which Leonding didn't bite, for they decided to let Italy keep control of this one. But I had sort of stood on that pedestal and so wanted to make sure that if I was taking a dot, it was from the Italian and not from the Austrian. So I make sure I prioritize Timisoara. Because either way here, I would have only gotten the one, right? But I have a 50-50 guess here over which one Dornburn is going to go to. I assume he's going to go to Feldkirch. And he ends up going to Steyr, so I lose the 50-50 here, and Dorn gets the extra dot. And actually, they managed to get back into Dornburn as well through the same kind of guessing. So, good job to Dorn for managing to survive on 2 here. That was very unexpected and great guesswork. But it means that I end the game on, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 over here in Reims, which is more than I expected, but it's still... I think it put me in, like, joint 6th or 7th place or something overall. And meanwhile, do you want to talk about what happens over here with you?
Oops, muted myself. Sorry, I was coughing. And the answer is, you can see what happened. I try to walk back into Constantinople, but Milan says, I don't want to kill Ezio. What a bro.
Yep. So Milan lets you survive at the last minute.
Well. Believe it or not, guys, I don't particularly care about the difference.
I mean, hey, it means you survived. That's
Yeah, it means I survived.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, notably, you got way closer to soloing than anyone else did at this stage, right? Well, I think Denmark ends on 11 still. Maybe they go
this hasn't adjusted. Do you have a winter map?
Yes.
To see
yes,
the final. Because then we can see the actual count, and I think Denmark ends on 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So Denmark and Omsk both end on 10. Omsk's explosion is actually insane, considering they were down to 1 supply center at like the midway point of the game.
Oh yeah.
Managing to fight back was incredible on this front.
If Omsk just, like, didn't take a bunch of dumb gambles against Rostov, our game would have been so much better. And I think it's a she, Tefra or whatever. Anyways, like, they were doing really well and, like, had good negotiations, but just lost a couple of dumb gambles, and yeah, that's what happens.
Yep. Alright. Hi, Editing Meme here. I'm just jumping in at this point because we kind of skip over quite a lot on this final phase, and I wanted to add a little more in about the contenders who weren't us, right, and what they did on the final phase of the game. So as you can see, the 2 winners, as we just stated, were Omsk and Denmark. They're both on 10 supply centers at the end of the game. Then we jump down to Partridge in 3rd place. We then have Odysseus in 4th and Klagenfurt in 5th. So just looking at those 5 powers on the final turn, some of their moves, so Omsk is probably the most straightforward one. They're just blitzing as much as they can on this last turn, and they do really well with it. They manage to get Ufa here, they get into Crescent, which ends up being undefended because Chicken is going for their other dot. and Narva is too busy dealing with me, right? Varna, sorry. And they get Tumen and Kazan at the same time. Just a general beautiful set of moves that puts them on a really solid supply center count. The other player who got into first place, Denmark, actually doesn't gain very much on this last turn. What Denmark has been doing is just trying to defend what they've had since their massive stabs against their neighbours, right? Since that coalition started collapsing in on them. And as you can see, they actually lose a couple of dots, West Munich and Waite, on this final turn of the game. What puts them into joint first is this move right here, Sofia to Bucharest. And this is very easily countered by Klagenfurt. Any reasonable Klagenfurt player here would put in Salzburg support hold Bucharest, because there's really no reason to do otherwise. And if you look back at what Klagenfurt has been doing in this war throughout, he has been playing pretty defensively on this front, right? You can even put Linz cut Belgrade, and then they can't get in even if you don't put a support hold on it. So why did Klagenfurt move back at this moment? And the answer comes down to press. There's a lot of joking around and talking to one another, and as always in diplomacy, it's all about getting those slight edges over people by making friends with people, potentially, or doing what someone really wants you to do. And in this case, Klagenfurt is notorious for loving Roman emperors, and just loving talking about Roman emperors. He has a whole thing in another server that we're in together, where he ranked every single Roman emperor. And Denmark hears about this, and Denmark offers to rank every single Roman emperor as well. Basically do this, several hour-long podcast with another player. I can't remember who it is. I'll have to add text on for who that is in post. But he offers to do this several hour-long podcast, ranking and making a tier list of every single Roman emperor. And Clegg says, you know what, if you do that, I will give you the extra dot that you're wanting here. And so he did that. And he gets the extra dot as a result of it, and that is what takes him over the top and manages to get him into joint first place with Omsk. So well done, Denmark, on that one. Other players, so Partridge here, their position in this phase really isn't all that good, right? They don't have a huge amount of guaranteed growth here, and if the players around them wanted to, they could stop them getting anywhere near this second place. But what Partridge has done really well throughout this game is make friends with all the people around them, right? Work really well with them. What we saw earlier in that comparison between Ezio and Partridge in GTFO is that Partridge was really well liked by everyone around them. And so on this final turn, they used that, and they talked to these people and asked them, look, are you willing to push me up and potentially over the top to make sure that we have a winner in our alliance? And people agree to it, and so they take a lot of centers through people backing out of those centers. So really great diplomatic success from them, even though it doesn't quite make it to the center count that they needed for first place. We then have Odysseus, who tries to do the same thing with their allies, but their allies aren't of the same opinion. So you can see they try to get Chicken to donate them Varna. Chicken was having none of it and bounces them out. They try to get Dornburn to donate them Wells. Dornburn uses that to slip into Dornburn behind them. And over here they didn't really have anything more they can take. They do support Chicken into Eski, which I think was supposed to be in trade for this Varna dot, but Chicken goes for the maximum number of dots that they can. So really, Odysseus shows the flip side of what can happen with Partridge's strategy when the players around you are too focused on their own supply center count to accept giving you what you want. Right. They still end up on a really solid number of supply centers, so congratulations to Odysseus, too, for fighting this out and coming in 4th place. And of course, then we have Klagenfurt in 5th, who ends up on 6 supply centers, could have been 7, but has voluntarily given 1 up because of the whole Roman Emperor thing. He doesn't really do anything at this point. He can't advance. You can see there's a support hold on Belgrade, and if you look back in the game, you'll see this line has basically been stalemated for ages and ages, and of course he's not close enough to any of the dots on this side to get them. So that really covers everything that the contenders were doing. One more note that I wanted to add is that in this final phase, I rejoin OFS. So OFS disbanded a very, very long time ago, right? It's not been a relevant alliance for a long time. I have, throughout the game, been known as Emperor Feldkirch, but you may have noticed in some of the messages that we flashed up that I sent people, I'm called OFS Feldkirch. And that is because on this last phase, I reform it by linking up with the only other OFS survivor, that is Brazov up here, and we both join OFS and form it with slightly less than its initial lands, right? You can see that Brazov is in a completely different location to where they started, and of course I don't own Burgos or Crescent, so we didn't quite manage to re-expand to the initial borders, and I don't own Styre, so we're actually a fair bit off that. But it's like a nice symbolic thing to have the starting alliance back at the end. And something that I didn't mention in this commentary that might make things make a little more sense with regard to how angry I got at Fire there, was when Brazov tried to leave Fire to rejoin OFS. Fire put that through bureaucracy and basically said, no, you're not allowed to leave, because that would ruin our map painting. And Brazov was like, look, I just declared independence. You can't do that. You can't say that I'm still in your alliance anyway. And Fire outright refused to let him leave continuously, and right up until the very end, kept painting his supply centers on the map as belonging to Fire. And that was what really got me finally tilted at Fire enough to make this big deal about Timisoara, and what ended up causing the Squaris argument to some extent. Hopefully that provides a little bit more context to that. But OFS stands strong on the final map, even though only two of us survived to the end of the game. I think that's everything I've got to add, so I'll hand you back over to past me and past Ezio. Yeah, I think it ends up being that Denmark and Omsk take joint first, and then Varna and Klag? Maybe Klag comes above Varna. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, they're tied on 7. Okay. No.
Yeah.
Klag goes down 1, right?
Oh, brutal.
In Bucharest. So Klag is next on 6, and then I'm on 5 joint with a few other people. Leonding included, I think. No?
Yeah, those are the people who have like dots and stuff, and they're around. But like, really, it's end of the game. The people who end the game with the most supply centers, board top, Omsk and Denmark.
Partridge does pretty well too. They come out with
Partridge is on 8. Yeah, right. Look at that.
9 even. So they're in joint, not joint third. They're in clear third. Yeah. So well fought back from them, given that they went down to like 3 after your stab. Or was it 4?
Partridge kept fighting to not like lose everything, right? Like, slightly suboptimal moves, but making sure that she still had dots. So I don't remember exactly.
Yep.
But I think it was like 3 or 4, probably 4. I don't know. Whatever, man.
Yeah. Alright, well, yes. Anyway, so congratulations to the players who ended on a lot of supply centers there. There were a few. And I mean, Ezio, I know you only ended on 1 dot, but I am going to say congratulations because you played a damn good game and got very close, right?
Yeah, I'd feel better if I ended the game on 15.
Would have felt worse for everyone else.
No, it wouldn't have. The game would have been over. It would have been done.
Well, I think it goes to show how good coalitions can be sometimes. Like,
Sometimes.
It was truly the entire force of the world who had been fighting and scrapping before that, coming together to face a greater evil.
The greatest evil known to the 7 days of chaos.
Yep.
Yeah.
And right at the end, the hero ends up sparing the villain. Right?
Was Milan at any point the hero?
That's a really good question, actually. Probably not.
Yeah.
God.
This is, I think, though, the full hero's journey, right?
Yes.
Like,
we couldn't
started-
have written this better, right? This actually just followed a perfect arc.
yep. Back to the start.
You're all the way back to one dot. The only way it would have been better is if you'd ended in Constantinople instead of Adapazari.
It would have, yeah. I tried to move back to Constantinople, but
Yeah, but didn't
Ronnec
quite
didn't want to
make
let
it.
me have it. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any closing thoughts then?
This was a blast. I know I've shit on the GM for a couple of decisions that they made, but I want to stress they did a great job in general with this game. Having so many moves to handle adjudication by hand, there were relatively few delays. They were on the ball. Like, huge shout out to the GMs. Shout out to everyone in GTFO. Partridge was a blast to have as a rival, to edge your way through. Shout out to Omsk for just being funny on the other side of the map. Shout out to Crossroads, best sub I've ever played with in a game. Well, that's not strictly. I mean, my favorite sub in a game, in a chaos game.
Right,
Sure.
so...
I only say this because, like, I've had Clag sub in for me, and like I love Fluminator, so it's
Oh,
tough
right.
to stiff competition. But like Crossroads was a blast. Loves Crossroads. Best is just a strong word that I should try never to use. Varna was a blast to play with. Became Odessa's super active. I don't know how they had that level of endurance, but that was crazy. And then shout out to all the fans. It was your energy that brought me through the year.
All those Ezio fans. cheering
All of
you
those
on.
Ezio fans in this game, and finally to all of the Ezio haters in this game. I'm glad you guys got what you wanted. I would have been so happy to win and rubbed in y'all's faces.
Why, thank you. I'm glad I got a shout out. Oh, man. I want to give a shout out to everyone in my original alliance in OFS. We didn't... we didn't do very well by the end of it. But hey, OFS owns Reims by the end, so that's something. And shout out to Brazov for making the maps, and Partridge, and I think Omsk was the other person. Shout out to all the people who were in Spiral and in Cold and GTFO and all the alliances I was in. And I did want to give a shout out to Fire for working so well together throughout the game, even though we have we have thrown a lot of criticism at the way it was played at some points. Yeah,
The entire game.
All right, well, that has been the 147 player game. We end the game with just 45 of us left alive. And so congratulations to everyone who made it to the end. Again, massive congratulations to Omsk and Denmark for coming out on top. This has been fantastic to play. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.